Hey everyone, welcome back to Dark Harry. Today we're diving into an amazing story called What If Wednesday Taught Harry the Killing Curse Before Hogwarts. Snape was speechless. If you love these stories, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us bring more content to you. Without further ado, let's begin. Chapter 1, The Girl Next Door. Harry Potter wiped sweat from his brow as he pulled another weed from Aunt Petunia's flower bed. July heat pressed down on Little whinging like a blanket, and he'd been outside since breakfast. His stomach growled, lunch wouldn't come until he finished the entire garden. A moving van rumbled down Privet Drive, slowing as it approached the house across from number 4. Harry paused, sitting back on his heels. New neighbors were rare in this meticulously maintained suburban neighborhood. The van looked ordinary enough, but the car that followed it definitely wasn't. A massive black vintage vehicle with fins pulled up behind the moving truck. It looked like something from an old horror movie, the kind Dudley sometimes watched when his parents weren't home. Harry squinted as the car doors opened. A tall, skeletal man in a pinstriped suit emerged from the driver's side, followed by a woman in a floor-length black dress despite the summer heat. Two children exited next, a pudgy boy and a girl about Harry's age with long black braids and a black dress that matched her mother's. Boy! Those weeds won't pull themselves. Aunt Petunia's sharp voice made Harry flinch. He returned to his work, but couldn't help stealing glances at the strange family across the street. Is there a funeral? Aunt Petunia muttered from the doorway, eyeing the newcomers with suspicion. Who dresses like that in summer? Harry didn't answer, knowing it wasn't expected. He watched as the pale girl stared directly at number 4 Privet Drive, directly at him. Her expression remained completely blank, but Harry felt a chill despite the heat. Freaks, Aunt Petunia declared, disappearing back inside. Harry worked through the afternoon, finishing the garden as the strange family unloaded their belongings. Unlike the other families on Privet Drive, they didn't have normal furniture. Harry spotted what looked like a stuffed bear with 2 heads, bizarre metal contraptions, and what might have been a small coffin. By dinner time, Harry had been sent to his cupboard for tracking dirt into the kitchen. He could hear Uncle Vernon through the door. Temporary residence, thank goodness, his uncle was saying. Some American family, the man works for an international corporation. Some kind of consultant. They'll be gone by autumn. Did you see how they're dressed? And those strange things they brought in? We'll have to keep Dudley away, Aunt Petunia replied. Adams, they're called, Vernon continued. Foreign name. Not natural. Harry's interest piqued. The Adams family. At least they'd make Privet Drive less boring for a while. 3 days later, Harry encountered the Adams girl directly. He'd been sent to the small playground 2 blocks from Privet Drive. Dudley had friends over, and Aunt Petunia didn't want him lurking about the house like a shadow. The playground was usually deserted in the afternoon heat. But today, someone occupied the rusted merry-go-round. The Adams girl sat perfectly still in the center, a large leather-bound book open on her lap. Her black dress pooled around her, making her look like she'd materialized from another century. Harry hesitated at the playground entrance. Something about her intense focus made him nervous. He considered turning back, but the thought of returning early to Privet Drive was worse. He quietly headed for the swings on the opposite side of the playground. You're the boy who lives in the cupboard, she said without looking up from her book. Harry froze mid-step. What? Now she looked up, dark eyes fixing on him with unsettling intensity. Under the stairs. I saw them lock you in when I was observing your house. You were watching our house. Harry approached cautiously, curious despite his unease. I observe everything. She closed her book. It's fascinating how humans cage things they fear or don't understand. They don't fear me, Harry said automatically. They just don't like me much. Fear and dislike are cousins, she replied. I'm Wednesday Addams. Harry Potter. Wednesday tilted her head slightly. You have power in you. Untapped. Undisciplined. Harry blinked, unsure how to respond to such a strange statement. Thanks. It wasn't a compliment. Just an observation. She opened her book again. You may sit if you wish. Harry hesitated, then joined her on the merry-go-round. He caught a glimpse of her book. The pages contained strange symbols and what looked like anatomical drawings. What are you reading? A book on magical theory from the 15th century. My great-aunt Calpurnia wrote it before she was burned at the stake. Wednesday turned a page. She cursed her executioner's bloodlines for 13 generations. Their descendants still break out in boils every full moon. Harry laughed, then realized she wasn't joking. Magic isn't real. Wednesday looked up sharply. You believe that? Well, yeah. Everyone knows. Hold out your hand. Harry hesitated, then extended his palm. Wednesday set her book aside and placed her hand above his, not quite touching. She closed her eyes, concentrating. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then Harry felt it, a warmth between their hands, growing hotter. Suddenly, a small blue flame appeared, hovering just above his palm. Harry jerked back in shock, but the flame followed his hand. It didn't burn, it felt warm and somehow connected to him. What? How did you? I didn't. You did. Wednesday watched him with those unblinking dark eyes. I merely showed your magic where to go. The flame flickered and died as Harry's concentration broke. That's impossible. Says the boy who regrew his hair overnight after his aunt cut it. The boy who found himself on the school roof when running from bullies. At Harry's stunned expression, she added, like I said, I observe. How did you know about that? Wednesday shrugged. I listen. People talk. The woman with the cats tells stories about the strange boy at number 4. Mrs. Fig. Peculiar woman. Smells of cabbage and knows more than she pretends. Wednesday reopened her book. You should learn to control it, you know. Wild magic is dangerous. Like keeping a tiger as a house pet. Harry stared at his palm, still feeling the ghost of warmth where the flame had been. Could you teach me? Wednesday didn't answer immediately. She studied him with that same unsettling intensity. Perhaps. If you're interesting enough. The next day, Harry waited anxiously for his chores to be finished. He rushed through vacuuming the living room and washing the breakfast dishes, earning a suspicious look from Aunt Petunia. What's got you in such a hurry, boy? Nothing, Aunt Petunia. Just trying to do a good job. She narrowed her eyes. Well, when you're done, you can clean the garage. That should keep you busy. Harry's heart sank, but he nodded. The garage would take hours, and he'd arranged to meet Wednesday at the playground at noon. By 1:30, Harry had sorted through 3 boxes of Dudley's broken toys and organized Uncle Vernon's power tools. His aunt finally declared herself satisfied, and Harry bolted out the door before she could assign another task. He sprinted to the playground, hoping Wednesday had waited. The merry-go-round was empty. Harry's shoulders slumped in disappointment. You're late. Harry whirled around. Wednesday stood behind him, silent as a ghost. Sorry. My aunt made me clean the garage. Wednesday nodded. Family obligations are sacred, even unpleasant ones. Come. This playground is too exposed. She led him past the playground to an area where the park bordered a small wooded area. Hidden among the trees stood an old maintenance shed, long abandoned by the park services. Wednesday produced an ancient-looking key and unlocked the rusted padlock. How did you get that? Harry asked as they entered the musty interior. I made it. The shed was larger inside than it appeared. Wednesday had clearly been using it. She'd set up a small table with candles and arranged various objects on the shelves. Books, jars containing things Harry didn't want to examine too closely, and what appeared to be animal bones. "This will be your classroom." She lit the candles with a match. First lesson, control. Harry watched as she placed a feather on the table. Focus on the feather. Feel the energy inside you. Direct it through your fingertips. Make the feather rise. Just like that. Intent matters more than words or movements. Though those help channel the power. Try. Harry stared at the feather, feeling foolish. He tried to sense something inside him, some reservoir of power that Wednesday claimed existed. Nothing happened. Remember how it felt yesterday. The flame. Harry closed his eyes, recalling the warm sensation. There had been something, a stirring, like a current flowing through him. He tried to find that feeling again, to direct it toward the feather. When he opened his eyes, the feather quivered slightly. "Good," Wednesday said. Again. For the next hour, Harry practiced, growing increasingly frustrated as the feather merely twitched and trembled. Wednesday watched impassively, occasionally offering cryptic guidance like, "Feel, don't think," or "Magic flows, it doesn't push." Finally, when Harry was about to give up, the feather rose shakily an inch off the table. "I did it." The feather immediately dropped as his concentration broke. Wednesday's mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile. "Adequate. Tomorrow we'll work on sustaining it." "Tomorrow? But I don't know if I can get away, 9 o'clock tomorrow night. After your relatives sleep." She extinguished the candles. "Use their fear against them." "What do you mean?" "They believe you're strange. Dangerous, even. Use that. Whisper in the dark. Make noises in the walls." Her eyes gleamed in the dim light. "They'll avoid your cupboard rather than investigate." Harry wasn't sure if he found this idea brilliant or terrifying. "Won't you get in trouble being out that late?" "My parents encourage nocturnal activities. Mother says it builds character." Wednesday handed him a small leather pouch. "Practice with these at home. Sand and feathers. Nothing that will burn your house down if you lose control." Harry pocketed the pouch, a strange mixture of excitement and apprehension churning in his stomach. "Why are you helping me?" Wednesday studied him. "Consider it a scientific inquiry. I've never taught someone with untapped abilities before. It's an experiment." As Harry headed home, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just made a deal with something both wonderful and dangerous. Over the next 3 weeks, Harry met with Wednesday almost daily. Surprisingly, it wasn't difficult to sneak out, exactly as Wednesday had predicted. A few strange noises coming from his cupboard late at night had convinced the Dursleys to pretend they didn't hear anything. His progress accelerated rapidly. After mastering levitation, Wednesday taught him to manipulate small objects, create light, and eventually, small illusions. Harry found himself absorbing the lessons hungrily, each new ability making him feel less powerless against the Dursleys. "You learn quickly," Wednesday commented one evening as Harry successfully transformed a dead beetle into a button and back again. "Most children struggle with transformative magic." "I've had a good teacher," Harry replied, still focused on the beetle. "Flattery is pointless between friends." Harry looked up in surprise. "We're friends." Wednesday considered this as if it were a complex philosophical question. "I suppose we are." An unexpected development. Harry grinned. He'd never had a friend before. Dudley scared away anyone who tried to be nice to him at school. That his first friend was a strange, macabre girl who taught him magic in a shed made perfect sense, somehow. "My brother wants to meet you," Wednesday said suddenly. "I've told him about our sessions." "You have a brother?" "Pugsley. He's been helping our father rewire the electrical system in our rental house. They're adding extra voltage." She gathered her books. "Come for dinner tomorrow night." Harry's heart sank. "I can't. The Dursleys would never let me." "Tell them you're staying late at the library. They won't check." They'd still say no. Wednesday tilted her head. Then don't ask. Sometimes forgiveness is simpler than permission. The next evening, Harry told Aunt Petunia he was going to the playground. Instead, he headed straight for the Addams' temporary home. He hesitated at the wrought iron gate they'd installed. Unlike the neat hedges of other privet drive homes, the Addams' front garden now featured strange, spiky plants and what appeared to be a small pet cemetery. Before he could knock, the door swung open. The tall, gaunt man Harry had seen on moving days stood there, smiling broadly. Ah! You must be Wednesday's little wizard friend. Come in, come in. He swept an arm dramatically. I am Gomez Addams. Welcome to our humble temporary abode. The interior of the house bore no resemblance to its original state. The walls were now dark red, mounted with strange weapons and unsettling portraits. A grandfather clock chimed 13 times as Harry entered. Cara mia. Wednesday's friend has arrived. Gomez called. The elegant woman in black glided into the hallway, examining Harry with interest. So this is the boy with potential. How delightful. She extended a pale hand. Morticia Addams. Harry shook her hand nervously. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Addams. Such manners, she murmured approvingly. Wednesday is in the basement with Pugsley. They're experimenting with spontaneous combustion. Would you care to join them while we finish preparing dinner? Harry nodded, unsure if she was joking. Morticia led him to a door, beyond which a staircase descended into darkness. Mind the third step, she said. It likes to disappear occasionally. Harry carefully made his way down, hearing muffled explosions as he descended. At the bottom, he found a fully equipped laboratory that would have made his science teacher faint. Wednesday and a round boy with short hair were huddled over what appeared to be a bubbling cauldron. Harry, Wednesday acknowledged without looking up. Pass me the nightshade. Without questioning, Harry handed her a jar from a nearby shelf. He'd learned that Wednesday rarely explained herself and expected others to keep up. You must be Pugsley, Harry said to the boy, who grinned widely. Wednesday says you made a feather explode on your fourth try. Pugsley shook his hand enthusiastically. Wanna see my dynamite collection after dinner? Maybe, Harry replied, warming to the boy's obvious friendliness despite his concerning hobbies. Dinner with the Addams family was unlike anything Harry had experienced. The food looked questionable, was that tentacle in the stew, but tasted surprisingly good. The conversation flowed from topics like medieval torture devices to quantum physics without pause, with even the youngest Addamses contributing thoughtfully. Tell me, Harry, Gomez said, gesturing with a cigar, has my daughter been a thorough instructor? Wednesday has always had a gift for the darker arts. Harry glanced at Wednesday, who continued eating calmly. She's brilliant, sir. I've learned more from her than I ever did at school. Of course you have. Regular education is so limiting. Gomez laughed heartily. No courses on summoning or transfiguration or proper poisoning techniques. Dear, not everyone appreciates the art of toxicology as we do, Morticia gently reminded her husband. Right you are, cara mia. Harry, my apologies if we're too enthusiastic. Wednesday tells us your relatives have kept you uninformed about your heritage. Harry frowned. My heritage? The Addamses exchanged looks. Something silent passed between the parents and Wednesday. Your magical abilities, Morticia clarified. They run in families, typically. My family isn't magical, Harry said. My aunt and uncle hate anything unusual. Perhaps not that branch, Morticia said delicately. But magic like yours doesn't appear spontaneously. Your parents died in a car crash, Harry finished. That's all I know about them. Another silence fell around the table. Wednesday set down her fork. They're lying to you, she said flatly. Your scar isn't from a car crash. Harry's hand automatically went to the lightning-shaped mark on his forehead. How would you know? The shape. The residual energy. Wednesday's dark eyes held his. That's a curse scar. Wednesday, Gomez said, his voice uncharacteristically serious. Perhaps this isn't the time. Knowledge isn't improved by delay, Wednesday replied. Harry should know what he is. Harry looked between them, confusion and irritation building. Will someone please tell me what's going on? Morticia sighed, setting down her wine glass. We shouldn't interfere with how another magical community manages its affairs. But it does seem that you've been kept ignorant of basic facts. She studied Harry thoughtfully. Tell me, have you ever received strange letters? Had visits from unusual people? No, Harry replied. Nothing like that. Curious. She shared another look with her husband. There are different magical traditions across the world, Harry. Ours is, less structured than some. But we recognize power when we see it, and you come from a magical line. I suspect you'll learn more soon enough. We shouldn't say more, Gomez added, looking uncharacteristically cautious. British Magical Society has its own ways. But know this, my boy, you're not alone in your abilities. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but Harry's mind spun with questions. After dinner, Pugsley did indeed show him a collection of homemade explosives, while Wednesday watched silently from the doorway. When it was time for Harry to leave, Wednesday walked him to the gate. I apologize for my parents' cryptic behavior, she said. They respect magical territorial boundaries. Politics. Do you know something about my parents? About how they really died? Wednesday hesitated, the first time Harry had seen her uncertain. I know your scar wasn't caused by mundane means. The rest isn't my story to tell. Harry frowned. That's not fair. Life rarely is. She opened the gate. Tomorrow we begin offensive magic. Harry's frustration was temporarily forgotten. You mean like, fighting spells? I mean like causing things to catch fire with your mind. A hint of a smile touched Wednesday's lips. More practical than floating feathers, don't you think? By mid-August, Harry had mastered an impressive array of magical skills under Wednesday's tutelage. The abandoned shed had become a sanctuary, a place where he wasn't a burden or a freak, but a student with genuine talent. Your progress is adequate, Wednesday declared as Harry successfully caused water in a glass to freeze solid with a mere gesture. It was high praise coming from her. When do I get to learn really powerful spells? Harry asked, examining his frozen creation. Define powerful. I dunno. Something that would really show the Dursleys they can't push me around anymore. Wednesday studied him. Power without control is useless. Vengeance requires precision. I'm not talking about vengeance, Harry said quickly. Just, respect. Respect and fear are siblings. Both require demonstration. Wednesday opened an ancient-looking book bound in what Harry hoped wasn't human skin. Are you familiar with the concept of forbidden knowledge? Like stuff you're not supposed to know. Knowledge others decide you shouldn't possess. She turned brittle pages carefully. In structured magical societies, certain magics are classified as forbidden. Dark. Dangerous. Is that what you've been teaching me? Some. Wednesday looked up. Does that concern you? Harry considered this. No. It's just knowledge, right? It matters how you use it. Something like approval flashed in Wednesday's eyes. Precisely. Intent shapes outcome. She pushed the book toward him. This contains the most regulated spells in Western magical tradition. I believe you're ready for them. Harry leaned forward eagerly, examining the faded text. Strange incantations and diagrams covered the pages. These three are particularly feared, Wednesday said, pointing to spells near the bottom. The Cruciatus, which causes unimaginable pain. The Imperius, which enslaves the will. And the killing curse, Avada Kedavra. Harry's eyes widened. There's a spell that just kills. Instantly. Painlessly. It requires significant power and absolute intent. Wednesday watched him closely. In most magical jurisdictions, using any of these on a human carries a life sentence. Then why teach me? Knowledge isn't evil. Only actions can be judged. She closed the book. Besides, I find legal distinctions arbitrary. Is killing with a spell worse than pushing someone off a cliff? The result is identical. Harry couldn't argue with her logic, though something about these spells made him uneasy. Could I actually perform these? The first two, certainly. The killing curse. She tilted her head. It requires a particular state of mind. We'll find out. Over the next week, Wednesday taught Harry the theory behind the unforgivable curses, as she called them. They practiced the wand movements using sticks, though Wednesday explained that proper wands would channel the magic more effectively. When will I get a real wand? Harry asked during one session. When the proper authorities deem you ready, Wednesday replied cryptically. Not long now, I suspect. Harry learned that the killing curse manifested as green light, the same color he sometimes saw in his nightmares. When he mentioned this to Wednesday, she grew unusually serious. Describe these dreams precisely. Harry told her about the flashes of green light, the high, cold laugh, and the burning pain in his scar that sometimes followed. Wednesday was silent for a long moment after he finished. Memory, not dreams, she finally said. You've witnessed the killing curse before. But when would I? Harry stopped as understanding dawned. My parents. You think that's how they died? I think someone attempted very powerful magic against you and failed. Wednesday's voice was matter-of-fact. The scar is where it rebounded. Harry sat in stunned silence, processing this information. But who would, that, I don't know. She stood abruptly. It's time to attempt practical application. She produced a jar containing a large spider. Harry had become accustomed to Wednesday's use of living creatures in their lessons, though he still found it uncomfortable. We'll start with something simple. She placed the spider on the table. The spider has done nothing to you. It exists simply to survive and reproduce. Can you end its existence with pure intent? Harry stared at the spider as it crawled across the wooden surface. I don't know if I want to. Want is irrelevant. Can you? That's the question. Harry raised his hand, pointing his finger at the spider. Wednesday had taught him to channel magic through his hands until he received a proper wand. He focused on the incantation she'd taught him, trying to summon the necessary intent. Avada Kedavra, he whispered. Nothing happened. You're hesitating, Wednesday observed. The spell requires certainty. It feels wrong. Morality is subjective. Try again. Harry focused harder, imagining his magic flowing through him. Avada Kedavra. A faint green spark appeared at his fingertip but quickly faded. The spider continued its journey across the table, oblivious to its brush with death. Better, Wednesday said. Again. After several more attempts, Harry managed to produce a weak green light that made the spider twitch but did not kill it. Wednesday seemed satisfied nonetheless. The power exists within you. The hesitation is mental, not magical. She returned the spider to its jar. Next time, we'll try with something that deserves death. Like what? Wednesday's expression remained neutral. I'll find something suitable. The following evening, Harry arrived at their shed to find Wednesday waiting with a small cage. Inside was a large rat, its eyes darting nervously. This rat has been eating poisoned children at the primary school, Wednesday announced. 3 in the past month. Harry blinked. What? How do you know? I've been tracking it. The evidence is conclusive. Harry strongly suspected Wednesday was lying to make the exercise easier, but he played along. So it deserves to die. If anything deserves death, a child killer does. Wednesday opened the cage and used tongs to place the struggling rat on the table. She cast a quick spell to prevent it from escaping. End it. Harry focused on the rat, trying to summon genuine intent. He thought of imaginary children suffering because of this creature. He thought of pain and suffering it had supposedly caused. Avada Kedavra. A jet of green light shot from his finger, striking the rat squarely. The creature stiffened, then collapsed, unmistakably dead. Harry stared in shock at what he'd accomplished. A mixture of horror and fascination washed over him. Excellent, Wednesday said, examining the rat. Perfect execution. No physical damage, just immediate cessation of life functions. I killed it, Harry whispered. You exercised power with precision. Wednesday disposed of the rat's body in a small box. How do you feel? I don't know. Harry stared at his hand. Powerful. Scared. Both appropriate responses. She sat across from him. Power should inspire caution. Fear is protective. Would it work the same way on anything? Any living creature? The effect is identical regardless of size or species. Wednesday's dark eyes held his. Now you understand why it's forbidden. This knowledge makes you dangerous. I would never use it on a person, Harry said quickly. Never is a long time. Wednesday closed her book. Remember, Harry, power itself isn't dark or light. Intent determines nature. As Harry walked home that night, a strange mixture of emotions churned within him. He had performed magic that most people would consider unforgivable. Yet it felt like just another tool, dangerous, certainly, but not inherently evil. He wondered what his parents would think of what he'd learned. If Wednesday was right about them being magical too, would they have approved of his unorthodox education? 2 days later, Harry arrived at the shed to find Wednesday packing books into a trunk. You're leaving? He asked, a sinking feeling in his stomach. Father's work is complete. We return to America tomorrow. She continued methodically organizing her materials. Our time together is concluding. Harry felt a surprising surge of emotion. But we've barely scratched the surface. There's so much more to learn. Indeed. Knowledge is an endless pursuit. Wednesday handed him 3 books from her collection. These will continue your education until more formal instruction begins. Harry accepted the books, noting their ancient bindings and strange titles. Formal instruction. It's coming sooner than you think. She produced a small black box. This contains a method of communication. With it, you can contact me regardless of distance. Inside the box was what looked like a small hand mirror with a black frame adorned with tiny skulls. Speak my name to it 3 times, and I will appear, Wednesday explained. Distance will affect clarity but not function. Like magical video chat, Harry said, then explained the concept when Wednesday looked blank. Primitive but accurate description. She finished packing and turned to face him fully. Harry Potter, you've been an acceptable student. Your progress has exceeded my calculations. Coming from Wednesday, this was effusive praise. Thanks to you. I wouldn't know any of this without your help. True. She held out her hand formally. I expect you to continue developing your abilities. Stagnation would be disappointing. Harry ignored the hand and instead gave her a quick hug. Wednesday stiffened but didn't push him away. Physical displays of affection are unnecessary, she said, though without her usual sharpness. That's what friends do, Harry replied with a grin. A ghost of a smile touched Wednesday's lips. Americans have corrupted you already. As they left the shed for the final time, Wednesday paused. One last piece of advice. When your formal magical education begins, conceal what I've taught you. Some would misunderstand our methods. You mean the killing curse? Among others. The British magical community is particularly restrictive regarding certain branches of magic. Revealing advanced knowledge would raise unwelcome questions. I'll be careful, Harry promised. They parted at the playground, Wednesday walking back toward Privet Drive while Harry lingered on the swings, processing the sudden end to the strangest and most wonderful summer of his life. The next morning, the Adams house stood empty, the family departed before dawn. The only evidence they'd ever been there was a lingering smell of something burning and the strange plants in the front garden, which the new tenants would struggle for months to remove. Harry returned to his lonely existence at number 4, but everything had changed. He practiced magic secretly in his cupboard, mastering the spells in Wednesday's books. He spoke to her through the mirror occasionally, updating her on his progress while she shared bizarre stories of her family's return to their ancestral home. Then, a week before his 11th birthday, the first letter arrived. Harry stared at the strange envelope with its emerald green ink. He didn't recognize the crest, but he knew immediately what it represented. His formal magical education was about to begin. Wednesday, he whispered to himself with a smile, you were right again. Chapter 2, Shocking the Serpent. Harry stood on platform 9 3/4, taking in the chaos of students and parents crowding around the scarlet steam engine. The Hogwarts Express gleamed in the morning light, billowing steam across the platform. Hagrid had been shocked when Harry barely reacted to learning about the magical world. "Yeah, Don, seemed surprised," the giant had said when delivering Harry's letter and explaining about Hogwarts. Harry had just shrugged. "I've always known I was different." Now, watching the magical families saying goodbye, Harry felt a strange confidence. While the other first-years looked nervous, he straightened his shoulders and gripped his trunk. Thanks to Wednesday, he wasn't walking into this new world completely blind. He'd spent the previous evening examining his new wand. Holly and Phoenix Feather, 11 inches, Mr. Ollivander had said with that strange, knowing look. Curious, very curious. When Harry had first grasped it, the surge of power had been so much stronger than when he'd practiced wandless magic with Wednesday. He'd accidentally shattered a vase in the shop, earning a raised eyebrow from the wand maker. A family of redheads bustled past, the mother fussing over her children. "Fred, George, behave yourselves this year, I mean it. Ron, you've got something on your nose." Harry watched as the youngest boy tried to dodge his mother's handkerchief. Their eyes met briefly, and Harry nodded before turning to board the train. Finding an empty compartment, Harry settled in and pulled out one of the books Wednesday had given him, Magical Theory Beyond Boundaries. He'd carefully wrapped it in a fake cover labeled, Beginner's Guide to Chess, in case anyone got too curious. The compartment door slid open, and the red-haired boy from the platform stood there, looking uncertain. "Mind if I sit here? Everywhere else is full." Harry gestured to the seat across from him. "Go ahead. I'm Ron." "Ron Weasley," the boy said as he sat down. "Harry Potter." Ron's eyes widened, gaze immediately darting to Harry's forehead. "Blimey. Do you really have the... you know?" Harry lifted his fringe, revealing the lightning scar. He'd grown used to this reaction since entering the wizarding world, though he still found it strange to be famous for something he couldn't remember. "So that's where you know who?" "Voldemort," Harry said deliberately. Ron gasped. "You said his name." "Fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself," Harry replied, quoting something Wednesday had told him. "He's gone, isn't he?" "Well, yeah, but still." Ron looked impressed and unsettled simultaneously. "No one says the name." The conversation shifted to safer topics, Ron's family, the wizarding world, Hogwarts houses. Harry listened more than he spoke, filing away information while carefully avoiding mentioning his magical education. "My brothers told me we have to fight a troll for the sorting," Ron said nervously. Harry smiled. "I doubt that." It's probably some kind of magical assessment. A test of character or ability. How would you know? Ron asked, curious rather than challenging. Harry shrugged. Just logical. They wouldn't risk injuring students before classes even start. The compartment door opened again, revealing a girl with bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth. Has anyone seen a toad? A boy named Neville's lost one. No toads here, Ron said. The girl's attention shifted to Harry's book. Are you studying chess? I've read all about wizard chess. It's like muggle chess but the pieces move on their own and, I know how it works, Harry interrupted. And no, I haven't seen any toads. She frowned at his abruptness but persisted. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. And you are? After introductions, Hermione settled herself uninvited into their compartment and launched into a monologue about how she'd learned all their course books by heart. Harry watched her with mild amusement, recognizing a kindred eagerness for knowledge, if not the need to broadcast it. Nobody in my family's magic at all. It was ever such a surprise when I got my letter, but I was ever so pleased. Of course, you're Muggle-born, Harry stated rather than asked. Yes, she replied, looking slightly defensive. Is that a problem? Not at all. Power is power, regardless of source. Harry returned to his book, effectively dismissing her. Hermione looked taken aback, clearly unused to being cut off. Well, I should get back to helping Neville. You two should change into robes. I expect we'll be arriving soon. After she left, Ron whistled low. Bit intense, isn't she? Knowledge without application, Harry murmured. She'll learn. Ron gave him an odd look but was distracted by the food trolley arriving. Harry bought a sampling of everything, fascinated by the magical sweets. When Ron produced sad-looking sandwiches, Harry insisted on sharing his haul. Trade you a chocolate frog for one of those sandwiches, Harry said. I've never had homemade wizard food before. Ron's ears went red, but he seemed pleased as they exchanged items. It's just corned beef. Nothing special. Everything's new to me, Harry said, taking a bite. It was dry and a bit bland, but Harry smiled appreciatively anyway. Making allies was important, Wednesday had taught him. You never knew when someone might prove useful. Their peaceful snacking was interrupted when the compartment door slid open again. 3 boys entered, a pale, pointed-faced boy flanked by 2 larger ones who resembled bodyguards. Is it true? The pale boy asked. They're saying Harry Potter's in this compartment. That's me, Harry said calmly, setting aside his book. This is Crabbe and Goyle, the boy said carelessly, nodding to his companions. And I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. Ron gave a slight cough that might have hidden a snigger. Draco Malfoy shot him a look. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. Red hair, freckles, and a hand-me-down robe? You must be a Weasley. Harry studied Malfoy with interest. The boy practically radiated privileged arrogance, exactly the type of person Wednesday had warned him about. Those who flaunt superiority rarely possess it, she'd said. You'll soon find that some wizarding families are better than others, Potter, Malfoy continued. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there. He extended his hand. Harry considered it for a moment. Making an enemy on his first day seemed unwise, but so did alienating Ron, who was glaring at Malfoy with undisguised dislike. I appreciate the offer, Harry said, not taking the hand. But I prefer to judge people individually rather than by family reputation. Less chance of misjudgment. Malfoy's pale cheeks flushed pink. You'll regret that, Potter. I'd be careful if I were you. Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go the same way as your parents. Harry felt a cold surge of anger. Without thinking, he focused his magic, causing the temperature in the compartment to drop noticeably. Frost began forming on the window beside Malfoy's head. That sounds remarkably like a threat, Harry said quietly. Is it? Draco's eyes widened as he noticed the unnatural cold. Even Crabbe and Goyle shifted uncomfortably. Just offering some friendly advice, Malfoy said, trying to maintain his composure despite the visible puffs of breath now coming from his mouth. Come on, he muttered to his cronies, and they disappeared. As they left, Harry released his hold on the magic. The temperature returned to normal, the frost melting rapidly. Ron stared at him open-mouthed. Bloody hell. How did you do that? Harry shrugged, trying to appear casual. Just lost my temper, I guess. Strange things happen around me when I'm angry. Yeah, but that was. Ron shook his head in amazement. You scared Malfoy right off. His whole family was in Slytherin, you know. Dark wizards, the lot of them. Not all Slytherins are dark wizards, Harry said automatically, remembering Wednesday's lectures on magical politics. And not all dark wizards come from Slytherin. Ron looked skeptical but didn't argue. Which house do you think you'll be in? My whole family's been in Gryffindor. I'm not sure, Harry said honestly. I suppose we'll find out soon enough. The Great Hall exceeded even Harry's expectations. Thousands of candles floated in midair, illuminating 4 long tables where students sat beneath banners of their respective houses. At the front of the hall, the teachers watched from their table as Professor McGonagall led the first years forward. Harry scanned the staff table, recognizing Hagrid's massive form. His gaze paused on a hook-nosed man with greasy black hair, who was staring at Harry with an expression of intense dislike. Beside him sat a nervous-looking man wearing a purple turban. A strange prickling sensation ran across Harry's scar as he looked at the turbaned professor. He filed the reaction away for future consideration, focusing instead on the Sorting Hat's song. As McGonagall began calling names, Harry observed each student sorting with interest. The hat seemed to take different amounts of time with each person, almost instantly declaring Hufflepuff for Hannah Abbott, but deliberating much longer with others. When Hermione Granger was called, the hat took nearly a minute before shouting, Gryffindor. Ron groaned beside him, clearly having hoped she'd go elsewhere. Draco Malfoy swaggered forward when his name was called. The hat had barely touched his head when it screamed, Slytherin. Finally, McGonagall called, Potter, Harry. Whispers broke out across the hall as Harry stepped forward. Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter? The last thing Harry saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was the hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. Then he was staring at the black inside of the hat, waiting. Said a small voice in his ear. Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind, either. There's talent, oh yes, and, oh my, what's this? Knowledge you shouldn't have, Mr. Potter. Harry tensed. Interesting, very interesting. Who has been teaching you such things, I wonder? Ah, I see, an unconventional education indeed. You do well in Slytherin, you know. They could help you on the path to greatness with what you already know. Not Slytherin, Harry thought firmly. Not Slytherin, eh? Are you sure? You have such potential for power, and Slytherin could nurture that. No. Well, if you're certain, better be Gryffindor. Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the entire hall. He removed it and walked toward the Gryffindor table, where he received the loudest cheer yet. Percy Weasley pumped his hand vigorously, while the Weasley twins chanted, We got Potter. We got Potter. As the applause died down, Harry caught the eye of the hook-nosed professor again. The man's expression had grown even more sour, his black eyes boring into Harry with unmistakable dislike. Who's that teacher talking to Professor Quirrell? Harry asked Percy, nodding toward the staff table. That's Professor Snape, head of Slytherin House. Teaches potions, but everyone knows he's after Quirrell's job. Knows an awful lot about the dark arts, Snape does. Harry studied Snape with renewed interest. A potions master with knowledge of dark arts could prove either a valuable ally or a dangerous adversary. He'd need to tread carefully there. The first week of classes was a revelation. After years of being punished for unexplainable occurrences, Harry reveled in the freedom to practice magic openly. His classmates struggled with basic spells while Harry performed them with ease, often on his first attempt. In Transfiguration, Professor McGonagall demonstrated turning a desk into a pig and back again. When the students were given matches to transform into needles, Harry completed the task before Hermione had even finished reciting the theory to herself. "Mr. Potter," McGonagall said, examining his perfect silver needle with surprise. "Have you practiced this before?" "No, Professor," Harry said, maintaining eye contact. "I just followed your instructions carefully." McGonagall's eyes narrowed slightly, but she awarded Gryffindor 5 points for his success. In Charms, tiny Professor Flitwick fell off his stack of books when he reached Harry's name during roll call. By the end of the lesson, Harry had mastered the wand movements for a basic levitation charm while most students were still struggling to hold their wands correctly. "You're really good at this," Ron said as they left the classroom. "You sure you haven't done magic before?" "I've read about it," Harry replied evasively. "Theory helps." Hermione, who'd overheard, looked at Harry with renewed interest. "Which books?" "I read A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration and Magical Theory, but they didn't make the practical work this easy." "Just intuition, I guess," Harry said with a shrug, changing the subject. "Anyone hungry?" Defense against the dark arts proved disappointing. Professor Quirrell's classroom smelled strongly of garlic, which he claimed was to ward off a vampire he'd encountered in Romania. His turban, he told them, had been given to him by an African prince for defeating a troublesome zombie. Harry found the stories unconvincing. More concerning was the way his scar prickled painfully whenever Quirrell turned his back to the class. It happened too consistently to be coincidence. After dinner that evening, Harry retreated to his dormitory and pulled out Wednesday's mirror. "Wednesday Addams, Wednesday Addams, Wednesday Addams," he whispered. The mirror's surface clouded, then cleared to reveal Wednesday's pale face against a dark background. "Harry Potter," she acknowledged. "You've arrived at your magical institution." "Hogwarts, yeah," he confirmed. "It's interesting. The teachers keep giving me strange looks when I perform spells correctly." "As expected. First years aren't supposed to succeed immediately. Control yourself better." Harry grimaced. "I'm trying, but it's hard to pretend to be worse than I am." "Then be selectively competent. Excel in subjects that matter, struggle convincingly in others." "There's something else," Harry said, lowering his voice further. "One of the teachers, Quirrell, makes my scar hurt whenever he's near me. Especially when I can't see his face." Wednesday's expression remained neutral, but Harry noticed her eyes sharpen with interest. "Describe the pain." "Like a needle. Sharp, focused. It only happens around him." "Your scar is a magical wound," Wednesday said. "It may be reactive to certain types of magic." "This teacher, what does he teach?" "Defense against the dark arts." "Appropriate. Keep your distance but observe him. If the pain increases, document the circumstances." Wednesday tilted her head slightly. "Any other anomalies?" Harry told her about the Sorting Hat's comments and his encounters with the various professors. She listened without interrupting, her dark eyes unblinking. "The Hat is correct to be concerned," she finally said. "Maintain your cover. British magical education is restrictive, they fear power they don't control." "What about Snape?" "He seems to hate me already." "Use it. Hatred makes people predictable. Observe his patterns, identify his triggers." A noise from the stairwell made Harry glance up. "Someone's coming. I have to go." "Mirror again in 1 week," Wednesday instructed before her image faded. Ron entered the dormitory, munching on a chocolate frog. "Who were you talking to?" Just thinking out loud, Harry said, slipping the mirror under his pillow. Planning for tomorrow's classes. By Friday, Harry had developed a careful strategy for his classes: perform spells correctly but not too quickly, ask occasional questions to appear engaged but uninformed, and avoid any displays of advanced knowledge. It was working. His teachers' suspicion seemed to fade as they attributed his aptitude to natural talent rather than prior training. The exception was potions. Harry had been dreading and anticipating this class in equal measure since his conversation with Percy. A teacher knowledgeable in both potions and dark arts could provide insights Wednesday's hasty lessons hadn't covered. The potions classroom was in the dungeons, cold, damp, and lit by flickering torches that cast eerie shadows across the walls lined with jars of floating, preserved animals and plants. Harry and Ron took seats near the middle of the room as Snape swept in, his black robes billowing behind him. Like Flitwick, Snape started by taking the register, pausing at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly. "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." Draco Malfoy and his friends sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling the names and looked up at the class, his black eyes as cold and empty as Wednesday's, but lacking her clinical curiosity. "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making," he began, speaking barely above a whisper but commanding complete silence. "As there is little foolish wand-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, and snaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stopper death, if you aren't as big a bunch of dunderheads as I usually have to teach." Harry maintained eye contact with Snape throughout the speech. Wednesday had taught him that looking away first was a sign of submission. "Potter," Snape said suddenly. "What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Hermione's hand shot into the air, but Harry didn't look at her. He recognized the ingredients from Wednesday's lessons on toxic potions. "The draught of living death, sir," Harry answered calmly. "A powerful sleeping potion." Snape's eyes narrowed slightly. "Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar?" "In the stomach of a goat. It's a stone that acts as an antidote to most poisons." "What is the difference, Potter, between monkshood and wolfsbane?" Harry allowed himself a small smile. "Nothing, sir. They're the same plant, also called aconite. It's highly toxic but useful in several potions, including those that help control lycanthropy." A heavy silence fell over the classroom. Snape's sallow face had gone rigid, his eyes never leaving Harry's. The other students looked between them, sensing the tension. "Correct," Snape finally said, his voice colder than before. "Though I notice you emphasize the plant's toxicity. Planning to poison someone, Potter?" "No, sir," Harry replied. "Just pointing out that even dangerous substances have valuable applications. Context matters." Something flashed in Snape's eyes, recognition, perhaps, or suspicion. Indeed. 1 point to Gryffindor for being unexpectedly prepared. Don't let it go to your head. The class progressed to brewing a simple potion to cure boils. Harry worked methodically, remembering Wednesday's precise instructions about ingredient preparation. "Potions is unforgiving of error," she told him. "Precision equals power." He crushed snake fangs into a fine powder, stewed horned slugs perfectly, and added porcupine quills only after removing his cauldron from the fire. When Snape swept by to inspect his work, Harry's potion was exactly the shade of blue described in the textbook. Snape paused, examining the potion with a frown. "Adequate, Potter." He moved on without further comment, but Harry noticed the professor glancing back at him repeatedly throughout the lesson. As they climbed the steps out of the dungeon after class, Ron shook his head in amazement. "That was brilliant. How did you know all those answers?" "I read ahead," Harry said with a shrug. "Seemed like a good idea after what Percy said about him. But even Hermione didn't know that stuff about wolfsbane being toxic, Ron insisted. It was in the introduction to our potions book, Harry lied smoothly. Most people skip the introductions. Hermione, who had been walking ahead of them, slowed to fall into step. I read the introduction, she said with a slight frown. It mentioned aconite but not its toxicity or use in lycanthropy treatments. Harry silently cursed his mistake. Must have been something I read in an advanced book at Flourish and Blotts while getting my school supplies. I've got a good memory for random facts. Hermione didn't look entirely convinced but seemed to accept the explanation. Well, it was impressive anyway. I've never seen Snape award points to a Gryffindor before, even Percy says he's absolutely horrid to anyone outside Slytherin. He definitely doesn't like me, Harry said. But I don't think he hates me as much as he wants to. What's that supposed to mean? Ron asked. Just a feeling, Harry replied. Come on, let's drop our bags before lunch. The following weeks established a rhythm. Harry attended classes, excelled enough to earn house points but not enough to raise serious questions, and spent his evenings divided between homework, chess games with Ron, and occasional secret conversations with Wednesday through the mirror. He found himself enjoying Ron's company more than expected. The redhead's strategic mind, revealed during their chess matches, suggested potential that his casual demeanor often obscured. Hermione proved more complicated, brilliant but rigid, constantly citing rules and authorities rather than questioning or exploring beyond them. Flying lessons revealed another natural talent. The moment Harry mounted his broomstick, he knew he'd found something magical that didn't require Wednesday's teachings to excel at. When Neville injured himself and Malfoy stole his Remembrall, Harry's spectacular dive to recover it led to an unexpected outcome, being named Seeker for the Gryffindor Quidditch team rather than punished. Youngest Seeker in a century, Ron kept repeating, awed. Wait till Malfoy hears about this. Harry's fame within Hogwarts grew, but it also attracted unwanted attention. Malfoy challenged him to a midnight duel, which Harry recognized immediately as a trap. He's not planning to show up, Harry told Ron when they were alone. He's going to tip off Filch and get us in trouble. How do you know? Because it's what I'd do in his position, Harry said matter-of-factly. He can't beat me directly, so he's trying to be clever. Ron looked at him strangely. Sometimes you say things that sound. What? I dunno. Not like an 11-year-old, I guess. Harry shrugged. The Dursleys made me grow up fast. They avoided Malfoy's trap but discovered something far more interesting, a massive three-headed dog guarding a trapdoor on the forbidden third floor. Harry immediately recognized its significance. It's guarding something important, he told Ron and Hermione, who had unwittingly become involved in their nighttime adventure. Something small enough to be moved from Gringotts to here. How could you possibly know that? Hermione demanded. Hagrid emptied a vault at Gringotts when he took me shopping. Said it was Hogwarts business for Dumbledore. Harry tapped his fingers against his knee, thinking. The same day, someone tried to rob a different Gringotts vault. It was in the Daily Prophet. So whatever was moved is what that monster's guarding, Ron concluded. Precisely. That night, Harry reported the discovery to Wednesday through the mirror. Cerberus, she said when he described the three-headed dog. Mythological guardian of the underworld. Typically soothed by music in classical mythology. What could be valuable enough to need that kind of protection? Wednesday considered. The wizarding world values many artifacts, wands of destiny, resurrection stones, philosopher's stones. Philosopher's stone? Harry repeated. What's that? A legendary alchemical substance. Transforms base metals to gold and produces the elixir of life, granting immortality. Wednesday's eyes gleamed in the mirror's dim reflection. Nicholas Flamel is the only known creator. Flamel, Harry murmured. I've heard that name somewhere. He's over 600 years old thanks to his creation. If someone wanted immortality, it would be worth stealing, Harry finished. I need to find out more about this stone. Research carefully. Knowledge pursuit attracts attention. Harry nodded. One more thing, my scar keeps hurting around Professor Quirrell. Especially when I can't see his face. Wednesday's expression sharpened. Interesting. Your scar is connected to the one who gave it to you. Voldemort. But he's gone. Is he? Wednesday asked softly. Bodies can be destroyed while essence remains. Consider parasitic possession. You think Voldemort is possessing Quirrell? The idea sent a chill down Harry's spine. It's a hypothesis worth investigating. Observe his behavior. Note when your scar reacts most strongly. And Harry, Wednesday's voice lowered further. If my hypothesis is correct, remember what I taught you about the killing curse. The mirror went dark, leaving Harry alone with troubling thoughts. Halloween arrived with the smell of baking pumpkin wafting through the corridors. Professor Flitwick announced they were ready to start making objects fly in Charms class, something Harry had been doing secretly for months. He was paired with Seamus Finnegan, while Ron worked with Hermione. Neither looked happy about the arrangement. Hermione had become increasingly frustrated with Harry's inexplicable abilities and Ron's casual attitude toward schoolwork. Now, don't forget that nice wrist movement we've been practicing, squeaked Professor Flitwick. Swish and flick, remember, swish and flick. And saying the magic words properly is very important, too. Harry performed the spell correctly on his first attempt, sending the feather soaring gracefully to the ceiling. Flitwick clapped in delight, but Harry noticed Hermione's scowl as she struggled to help Ron with the proper pronunciation. It's Wingardium Leviosa, she corrected, not Leviosa. You do it, then, if you're so clever, Ron snarled. Hermione succeeded on her next attempt, earning praise from Flitwick and a darker scowl from Ron. After class, Ron's frustration boiled over. It's no wonder no one can stand her, he told Harry as they pushed their way into the crowded corridor. She's a nightmare, honestly. Someone knocked into Harry as they hurried past. It was Hermione, and Harry was startled to see tears in her eyes. I think she heard you, Harry said quietly. So? Ron looked uncomfortable but defiant. She must have noticed she's got no friends. Hermione didn't appear in their next class and wasn't seen all afternoon. On their way to the Halloween feast, Harry and Ron overheard Parvati Patil telling her friend Lavender that Hermione was crying in the girls' bathroom and wanted to be left alone. Ron looked still more awkward at this, but Harry felt a strange concern. Hermione was annoying at times, but her intelligence made her potentially valuable. You should apologize to her at the feast, Harry suggested as they entered the Great Hall. Why should I? Ron protested, but his resistance seemed half-hearted. The Halloween decorations were spectacular, live bats fluttered from the walls and ceiling while carved pumpkins floated overhead. Harry was helping himself to a baked potato when Professor Quirrell came sprinting into the hall, his turban askew and terror on his face. Troll, in the dungeons, thought you ought to know. He sank to the floor in a dead faint. The hall erupted in panic until Dumbledore shot purple firecrackers from his wand and ordered prefects to lead their houses back to dormitories. As they jostled their way through the crowd, Harry suddenly grabbed Ron's arm. Hermione. What about her? She doesn't know about the troll. Ron bit his lip. Oh, all right, he snapped. But Percy better not see us. They slipped away from the Gryffindors and hurried toward the girls' bathroom. As they rounded a corner, they heard quick footsteps behind them. Ron pulled Harry behind a large stone griffin. To their surprise, it was Snape, not Percy, who crossed the corridor and disappeared from view. What's he doing? Harry whispered. Why isn't he down in the dungeons with the rest of the teachers? No idea. They crept along the next corridor, following Snape's fading footsteps. He's heading for the third floor, Harry realized aloud. The three-headed dog, he's going after whatever it's guarding. Before Ron could respond, another sound reached them, a low grunting and the shuffling of enormous feet. At the end of a passage, a 12-foot mountain troll lumbered into view. "The key's in the lock," Harry whispered, pointing to the door the troll was approaching. "We could lock it in." "Good idea," Ron agreed nervously. They edged toward the open door, hearts hammering. With a quick leap, Harry grabbed the key, slammed the door, and turned the lock. "Yes," they exclaimed together, running back up the passage. But their triumph faded as a high, petrified scream came from the chamber they'd just locked. "That's the girls' bathroom." Harry gasped. "Hermione." Ron looked pale. Harry's mind shifted into the analytical state Wednesday had taught him for dangerous situations. He mentally catalogued their resources: 2 first-year wizards with minimal combat training against a full-grown mountain troll. "Ron, go get a teacher," he ordered. "I'll distract it." "Are you mental? I'm not leaving you alone with that thing. We don't have time to argue." But it was too late. Ron was already unlocking the door. The bathroom was a scene of chaos. Sinks had been ripped from walls, water sprayed from broken pipes, and Hermione was shrinking against the opposite wall, looking ready to faint. The troll advanced on her, knocking sinks off the walls as it went. "Confuse it!" Harry yelled, grabbing a tap and throwing it against the wall. The troll stopped, blinking stupidly, then turned toward Harry. It took a few lumbering steps before Ron yelled and threw a metal pipe, hitting its shoulder. While the troll was distracted, Harry ran around it, calling to Hermione, "Come on, run." But she couldn't move, still flat against the wall in terror. The shouting seemed to be driving the troll berserk. It roared and started toward Ron, who was nearest and had no escape route. Harry acted on instinct, performing a spell Wednesday had taught him for emergencies. He pointed his wand at the troll's feet and shouted, "Incarcerus." Thick ropes shot from Harry's wand, wrapping around the troll's legs. It stumbled, off balance, and crashed to the floor with a thud that made the whole room tremble. "Ron, get Hermione!" Harry shouted, maintaining his focus on the troll. The creature was already tearing at the ropes with surprising strength. Ron darted forward and pulled Hermione toward the door, but the troll's flailing club blocked their path. It was nearly free of the leg bindings. Harry pointed his wand at the troll's head. For a split second, the killing curse hovered in his mind, the simplest solution. Wednesday's voice echoed in his memory: "Intent and necessity determine justification." But he couldn't do it, not with witnesses, not unless absolutely necessary. Instead, he aimed at the troll's massive club as it swung wildly. Wingardium Leviosa. The club flew from the troll's grasp, rose high into the air, turned slowly over, and dropped with a sickening crack onto its owner's head. The troll swayed on the spot and then fell flat on its face with a thud that cracked the stone floor. Harry stood immobile, wand still raised, breathing heavily. Ron stared at the fallen troll in shock while Hermione slowly approached it. "Is it dead?" she whispered. "Just knocked out, I think," Harry said, lowering his wand. "We need to get out of here." But it was too late. A sudden slamming and loud footsteps announced the arrival of Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Quirrell. Quirrell took one look at the troll, let out a faint whimper, and sat quickly down on a toilet, clutching his heart. Snape bent over the troll, examining it with suspicious eyes. McGonagall was looking at Harry and Ron with cold fury. "What on earth were you thinking?" she demanded, with icy rage. "You're lucky you weren't killed. Why aren't you in your dormitory?" Then a small voice came from the shadows. "Please, Professor McGonagall, they were looking for me. Miss Granger." Hermione had managed to get to her feet at last. "I went looking for the troll because I thought I could deal with it on my own, you know, because I've read all about them." Harry tried to keep his face neutral, though he was genuinely surprised by Hermione's lie. "If they hadn't found me, I'd be dead now." Harry used a rope spell to trip it, and Ron knocked it out with its own club. They didn't have time to come and fetch anyone. It was about to finish me off when they arrived. Well, in that case. McGonagall stared at the three of them. Miss Granger, you foolish girl, how could you think of tackling a mountain troll on your own? Hermione hung her head. 5 points will be taken from Gryffindor for this, said McGonagall. I'm very disappointed in you. If you're not hurt at all, you'd better get off to Gryffindor Tower. Students are finishing the feast in their houses. Hermione left, and McGonagall turned to Harry and Ron. Well, I still say you were lucky, but not many first years could have taken on a full-grown mountain troll. You each win Gryffindor 5 points. Professor Dumbledore will be informed of this. As they hurried out of the chamber, Harry noticed Snape giving him a calculating look. His robes were torn around the leg, and Harry glimpsed blood before the professor quickly covered it. He went to the third-floor corridor while everyone was looking for the troll. Harry whispered to Ron once they were safely away. And he's been bitten. The dog must have attacked him. But why would he go near that monster? I think he was trying to steal whatever it's guarding. When they reached the portrait of the fat lady, they found Hermione waiting for them. There was an awkward pause, then all three of them said, thanks, and hurried off to get plates. From that moment on, Hermione Granger became their friend. There are some things you can't share without ending up liking each other, and knocking out a 12-foot mountain troll is one of them. November brought freezing weather and the start of the Quidditch season. Harry's first match, Gryffindor vs Slytherin, approached rapidly, adding to his already full schedule of classwork, research on the Philosopher's Stone, and continuing magical education through Wednesday's guidance. The morning of the match, Harry awoke early, his stomach churning with nerves. The Gryffindor team counted on him despite his inexperience, and he didn't want to let them down. At breakfast, he picked at his food while his teammates offered last-minute advice. Hermione urged him to eat something, but Harry couldn't manage more than a piece of toast. You'll be fine, she assured him. You're a natural flyer. Hermione's right, Ron added through a mouthful of sausage. Besides, Seekers are hardly ever attacked by the other team. That's reassuring, Harry said dryly. In the locker room, Oliver Wood gave a pre-game pep talk while Harry fidgeted with his scarlet Quidditch robes. He tried focusing on the game ahead, visualizing catching the snitch, but his mind kept drifting to more pressing concerns, Snape's suspicious behavior, Quirrell's possible connection to Voldemort, and the mysterious object hidden within Hogwarts. The match began with Madame Hooch's whistle, and Harry soared into the air, the familiar rush of flying temporarily pushing his worries aside. He circled high above the action, scanning for the snitch while the Gryffindor commentator, Lee Jordan, provided colorful narration below. And she's really belting along up there, a neat pass to Alicia Spinnet, back to Johnson and, no, the Slytherins have taken the quaffle. Harry continued his search, occasionally dodging bludgers sent his way by the Slytherin beaters. The Gryffindor crowd cheered as their chasers scored, putting them in the lead. Then it happened. Harry's broom gave a sudden, frightening lurch. For a split second, he thought he was going to fall. He gripped tighter with both his hands and knees, but the broom lurched again, as if trying to buck him off. Harry tried to turn back toward the goalposts, intending to ask Wood to call a timeout, but the broom was completely out of his control. It zigzagged through the air, making violent swishing movements that almost unseated him. No one seemed to have noticed Harry's predicament. The broom continued to carry him higher, jerking and twitching as it went. Wednesday's lessons immediately came to mind. When facing unknown magic, she'd taught him, identify the source before attempting countermeasures. This was clearly a jinx, someone was interfering with his broom. But who? And how could he counter it without his own wand, which was tucked uselessly inside his robes as he gripped the broom with both hands? The crowd had noticed now. People were pointing up at Harry as his broom rolled over and over, with him only just managing to hold on. Then the whole crowd gasped. The broom had given a wild jerk, and Harry swung off it, now dangling from it with only one hand. In the stands, Hermione had seized Hagrid's binoculars and was frantically scanning the crowd. I knew it, she gasped. Look, Snape. Ron grabbed the binoculars. Snape was in the middle of the stands opposite them. He had his eyes fixed on Harry and was muttering non-stop under his breath. He's doing something, jinxing the broom, Hermione said. What do we do? Leave it to me. Harry, still hanging one-handed from his bucking broom, made a decision. If he couldn't reach his wand, he'd have to use wandless magic, something Wednesday had emphasized he should never reveal publicly. But desperate times called for desperate measures. Focusing his concentration despite the chaos, Harry directed his magic toward identifying the nature of the jinx. He couldn't counter it, but perhaps he could temporarily disrupt it. He closed his eyes briefly, sensing the magical energy surrounding his broom. Two distinct magical signatures were interacting with it, one attempting to jinx the broom, another seemingly trying to counter the first. Two opposing forces, neither strong enough to completely overcome the other. Harry channeled his own magic into the mix, not countering either spell but disrupting the balance between them. For a precious few seconds, this created enough instability for Harry to swing himself back onto his broom. As he regained his seat, he noticed smoke rising from the teacher's stands. Whatever Hermione had done had apparently worked, his broom stopped bucking entirely, responding to his commands once more. Harry dove toward the ground, eyes searching desperately for the snitch. He needed to end this match quickly, before whoever had jinxed his broom could try again. A flash of gold near the grass caught his attention. He accelerated downward, reaching out, and felt his mouth fill with something cold and metal. He'd nearly swallowed the snitch. Spitting it into his hand, he held it up triumphantly, ending the game with Gryffindor's victory. As the crowd erupted in cheers and his teammates surrounded him, Harry scanned the teacher's stands. Snape looked livid, brushing soot from his robes, while Quirrell stood slightly apart, adjusting his turban with trembling hands. Harry's scar gave a particularly painful throb as he watched the turbaned professor. It was Snape, Ron insisted later as they huddled in Hagrid's hut, drinking tea. Hermione and I saw him. He was cursing your broomstick, muttering, wouldn't take his eyes off you. Rubbish, said Hagrid. Why would Snape do something like that? Harry exchanged looks with Ron and Hermione. We found out something about him, he told Hagrid. He tried to get past that three-headed dog at Halloween. It bit him. We think he's trying to steal whatever it's guarding. Hagrid dropped the teapot. How do you know about Fluffy? Fluffy? Ron echoed incredulously. Yeah, he's mine, bought him off a Greek chappie I met in the pub last year. I lent him to Dumbledore to guard yes. Harry said eagerly. Now, don't ask me any more, said Hagrid gruffly. That's top secret, that is. But Snape's trying to steal it. Rubbish, Hagrid repeated. Snape's a Hogwarts teacher, he'd do nothing of the sort. Then why did he just try to kill Harry? Hermione demanded. I know a jinx when I see one, Hagrid. You've got to keep eye contact, and Snape wasn't blinking at all. I'm tellin', yeah, you're wrong. Hagrid insisted hotly. I don't know why Harry's broom acted like that, but Snape wouldn't try and kill a student. Now, listen to me, all three of ya, you're meddlin' in things that don't concern ya. It's dangerous. You forget that dog, and you forget what it's guardin', that's between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel, aha. Harry exclaimed. So there's someone called Nicholas Flamel involved, is there? Hagrid looked furious with himself. That evening, Harry consulted Wednesday again through the mirror, sharing what had happened during the Quidditch match and Hagrid's accidental revelation. Two magical signatures, Wednesday repeated thoughtfully. Someone was jinxing your broom, another was performing a counter-jinx. Interesting. Everyone thinks it was Snape trying to kill me. An obvious conclusion. Perhaps too obvious. Wednesday's dark eyes narrowed. What does your instinct tell you? Harry considered. My scar hurts around Quirrell, not Snape. And when I checked the stands after the match, Quirrell was adjusting his turban. The turban conceals something, Wednesday said decisively. My research suggests turbans aren't standard British wizard attire. It serves a purpose beyond fashion. So Quirrell might be the one trying to steal the Philosopher's Stone. For Voldemort? A logical hypothesis. Continue monitoring both professors. And Harry, Wednesday paused, her expression somber. If you face what I suspect inhabits Quirrell's turban, remember my final lesson. Some threats can only be permanently eliminated one way. Harry swallowed hard, remembering the flash of green light, the dead rat. I understand. As Christmas approached, Harry decided to stay at Hogwarts while Ron's family visited his brother Charlie in Romania and Hermione returned to her parents. The castle grew quieter, snow blanketed the grounds, and Harry found himself with time to continue his research into Nicholas Flamel. Despite checking countless books in the library, they'd found nothing about Flamel. Hermione suggested looking in the restricted section, but without a teacher's permission, they couldn't access those books. On Christmas morning, Harry woke to find a small pile of packages at the foot of his bed. The first contained a roughly cut wooden flute from Hagrid. Mrs. Weasley had sent a hand-knitted emerald green sweater and homemade fudge. Hermione's gift was a box of chocolate frogs. The final package was light and wrapped in plain brown paper. Inside was something fluid and silvery gray. When Harry picked it up, it slithered to the floor like water, where it lay in gleaming folds. Ron, who had stayed at Hogwarts after all when his parents decided to visit Charlie, gasped. I think I know what that is, it's an invisibility cloak. Try it on. Harry threw the cloak around his shoulders, and Ron gave a yell. It is. Look down. Harry looked down at his feet, but they were gone. He dashed to the mirror, sure enough, his reflection showed only his head suspended in midair. A note had fallen from the cloak, your father left this in my possession before he died. It is time it was returned to you. Use it well. A very Merry Christmas to you. There was no signature. I'd give anything for one of these, Ron said, admiring the cloak. Anything. What's the matter? Nothing, Harry said, though he felt strange. Who had sent the cloak? Had it really once belonged to his father? That night, unable to sleep, Harry decided to use the cloak to access the restricted section of the library. The castle was eerily quiet as he crept through the corridors, the cloak making him completely invisible. The restricted section was at the back of the library, roped off from the rest of the stacks. Harry stepped carefully over the rope and held up his lit wand to examine the titles. They didn't tell him much. Their peeling, faded gold letters spelled words in languages Harry couldn't understand. Some had no title at all. One book had a dark stain that looked horribly like blood. Harry pulled out a large black and silver volume that looked promising. As he opened it, a piercing, blood-curdling shriek split the silence. The book was screaming. He slammed it shut, but the shriek went on and on. Panicking, Harry shoved the book back on the shelf and ran for the door, passing Filch in the entrance hall. Even invisible, the caretaker heard his footsteps. Who's there? Filch called. I know you're there, even if I can't see you. You can't hide from me. Harry backed away slowly, then turned and fled down a corridor. He had no idea where he was going until he came to a halt in front of a tall suit of armor. He had been so busy getting away from the library that he hadn't paid attention to where he was going. Voices approached, Filch and Snape. They were coming straight at him. Harry backed away, looking for an escape route, and noticed a door ajar to his left. He squeezed through it, holding his breath as the professors passed his hiding place. When their footsteps faded, Harry looked around the abandoned classroom. It appeared unused, with desks and chairs piled against the walls. But propped against the far wall was something that didn't belong, a magnificent mirror as high as the ceiling, with an ornate gold frame and an inscription, Eris stra eru oit ube kafru oit anwosi. Harry moved closer, and what he saw in the reflection made him clap his hand to his mouth to prevent a scream. He wasn't alone in the mirror. A crowd of people stood behind him. But when he turned around, the room was empty. He looked back at the mirror, and there they were, at least 10 others. 2 figures stood closest to him. A woman with dark red hair and green eyes, Harry's eyes. And a tall, thin man with untidy black hair and glasses, Harry's hair, Harry's face structure. "Mom," he whispered. "Dad?" They smiled and waved. The other figures must be extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Harry saw his own features repeated in their faces, his knees, his hands, his smile. He stood transfixed, staring at his family, drinking in the sight. How long he remained there, he didn't know. The reflections didn't fade, and he looked and looked until a distant noise brought him back to his senses. He couldn't stay, he had to find his way back to bed. He tore his eyes away from his mother's face, whispering, "I'll come back." Over the next 3 nights, Harry returned to the mirror. On the 3rd night, he found someone else already there, Albus Dumbledore, sitting on one of the desks against the wall. "Back again, Harry." Harry felt as if his insides had turned to ice. I didn't see you, sir." "Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you," said Dumbledore, smiling. "So, you, like hundreds before you, have discovered the delights of the Mirror of Erist." "I didn't know it was called that, sir. But I expect you've realized by now what it does." It shows me my family. It shows us nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desire of our hearts." Dumbledore's voice was gentle. "You, who have never known your family, see them standing around you. However, this mirror will give us neither knowledge nor truth. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen, or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible." Harry's mind raced, processing this information. "So it's dangerous." "Very astute, Harry. The mirror will be moved to a new home tomorrow, and I ask you not to go looking for it again. If you ever do run across it, you will now be prepared." Harry nodded, but couldn't resist asking, "Sir, what do you see when you look in the mirror?" I see myself holding a pair of thick, woolen socks." "One can never have enough socks." Harry stared. "Another Christmas has come and gone and I didn't get a single pair. People will insist on giving me books." As Harry slipped back to his dormitory under the cloak, he considered Dumbledore's words. The headmaster had clearly lied about what he saw in the mirror, which raised an interesting question: what was so personal that Dumbledore felt the need to hide it? When term resumed, Hermione returned with disappointing news: she hadn't found anything about Nicholas Flamel during the holiday. However, Harry's luck changed during a particularly cold Quidditch practice. Wood was pushing the team mercilessly despite the freezing temperatures. After practice, Harry headed straight to the library. He'd been thinking about his conversation with Wednesday about Flamel being over 600 years old. Perhaps they'd been looking in the wrong section all along. Instead of searching recent magical achievements, Harry turned to historical texts. It took hours of searching, but finally, in a dusty tome titled Alchemical Innovations of the Medieval Period, he found what he was looking for. When Ron and Hermione joined him, Harry pushed the book toward them triumphantly, pointing to a passage: "Nicholas Flamel, the noted alchemist, is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary substance with astonishing powers. The stone transforms any metal into pure gold and produces the elixir of life, which makes the drinker immortal. Mr. Flamel, who celebrated his 665th birthday last year, lives a quiet life in Devon with his wife Perenelle, 658. That's it." Hermione whispered excitedly. "That's what Fluffy's guarding, the Philosopher's Stone." "No wonder Snape's after it," Ron added. "Anyone would want it." Harry nodded in agreement, but his mind was racing ahead. If the stone granted immortality, it would be the perfect target for someone like Voldemort, someone who had been defeated but not truly destroyed. His suspicions about Quirrell grew stronger. That night, he reported their discovery to Wednesday. "You've confirmed what I suspected," she said, her pale face looking almost ghostly in the mirror's surface. "Now you must prepare for what comes next." "What do you mean?" "The stone will draw him out," Wednesday explained. "Whether it's Quirrell or Snape acting as his agent, Voldemort will make his move soon. When he does, you need to be ready. To use the killing curse," Harry whispered, glancing nervously at the dormitory door. "Only if necessary. But yes. If you face the parasite directly, that may be your only option." Harry frowned. "Dumbledore's here. He's supposed to be the only wizard Voldemort ever feared." "Adults are unreliable," Wednesday said flatly. "When the moment comes, you may stand alone. Be prepared for that reality." After their conversation, Harry lay awake in bed, contemplating what might be coming. He'd learned so much from Wednesday: spells, potions, magical theory. But was he truly prepared to face the wizard who had killed his parents? The answer, he realized, was both terrifying and liberating: he would have to be. Harry's concern about Quirrell grew as the professor's appearance deteriorated over the following weeks. He looked paler and thinner each day, with dark shadows under his eyes. His stutter worsened, making his lessons nearly incomprehensible. Snape, meanwhile, had become increasingly hostile toward Harry. He swept down on him during potions lessons, criticizing everything from his ingredient preparation to his cauldron temperature. One evening, following a particularly brutal Quidditch practice, Harry was returning to the castle alone when he saw a hooded figure hurrying down the front steps. The figure moved with a distinctive limp that Harry recognized as Snape's. Harry mounted his broom and followed silently, flying low enough to see where Snape was headed but high enough to avoid detection. The potions master entered the Forbidden Forest, and Harry hovered above the trees, watching. After several minutes, Snape stopped in a shadowy clearing where another figure waited, Quirrell, his turban gleaming faintly in the darkness. Harry descended carefully onto a large beech tree, straining to hear their conversation. "Don't know why you wanted TT to meet here of all places, Severus." Quirrell was stammering. "I thought we'd keep this private," Snape said, his voice ice-cold. "Students aren't supposed to know about the Philosopher's Stone, after all." Harry leaned forward. Quirrell was mumbling something. "Have you found out how to get past that beast of Hagrid's yet?" Snape interrupted. But Severus, you don't want me as your enemy, Quirrell," said Snape, taking a step toward him. I don't know what you know perfectly well what I mean. Your little bit of hocus-pocus. I'm waiting." But I don't." "Very well," Snape cut in. "We'll have another little chat soon, when you've had time to think things over and decided where your loyalties lie." Snape threw his cloak over his head and strode out of the clearing. Quirrell stood quite still, as if petrified. Harry remained in the tree, processing what he'd witnessed. Was Snape trying to force Quirrell to help him get the stone? Or was he, as Hermione had suggested earlier, actually protecting it from Quirrell? A soft voice broke through Quirrell's stuttering mumbles, a voice that didn't seem to be coming from the professor himself but from somewhere near him. "Patience, soon, the stone." A chill ran down Harry's spine. Before he could hear more, an owl hooted nearby, startling him. His broom shifted, causing leaves to rustle. Quirrell's head snapped up, scanning the trees. Harry froze, hardly daring to breathe. For a moment, he thought Quirrell was looking directly at him. Then the professor turned and hurried away, still muttering to himself, or to someone else. When Harry reported this encounter to Ron and Hermione, their reactions were predictable. Ron remained convinced Snape was the villain, while Hermione wavered, uncertain. "But what was that voice you heard?" she asked. "If Quirrell was alone after Snape left." "I don't know," Harry admitted, choosing not to share his darker suspicions. "Maybe he talks to himself." As they entered the final months of the school year, the workload increased dramatically. Teachers piled on homework in preparation for exams, giving Harry less time to worry about the Philosopher's Stone, until something happened that brought the danger sharply back into focus. Walking back from the library one afternoon, Harry heard someone crying in a classroom up ahead. He approached cautiously and heard Quirrell's voice. "No, no, not again, please," it sounded as if someone was threatening him. Harry moved closer. All right, Quirrell sobbed. A moment later, Quirrell came hurrying out of the classroom, straightening his turban. He looked pale and appeared on the verge of tears. He strode past without noticing Harry, who waited until his footsteps had disappeared before peering into the room. It was empty, but a door at the opposite end stood ajar. Harry approached it quietly but found only an unused corridor beyond. Quirrell seemed to have been talking to himself, or to that other voice Harry had heard in the forest. He returned to the Gryffindor common room, where Ron and Hermione were testing each other on astronomy. Harry told them what he'd heard. "So it's happening," he concluded. "Quirrell's given in. He's told whoever was threatening him how to get past Fluffy." "But it might not be Snape who was threatening him," Hermione pointed out. "It doesn't matter who it was," Harry said urgently. "If Quirrell's told them how to break the enchantment on the stone, it's only protected by Fluffy now." "We should go to Dumbledore," Hermione suggested. "That's what we should have done ages ago. If we try anything ourselves we'll be expelled for sure." "But we've got no proof," Ron exclaimed. "Who's going to believe us over a teacher? Besides, we're not supposed to know about the stone or Fluffy." Harry paced, thinking hard. "If we just do a bit of poking around," "No," said Hermione flatly. "We've done enough poking around." But Harry couldn't let it go. That night, he used the invisibility cloak to visit the third-floor corridor again. Fluffy was still there, still awake, still guarding the trapdoor. Whatever Quirrell had revealed, it hadn't been used yet. The next morning, notes were delivered to Harry, Hermione, and Ron at the breakfast table. They all said the same thing: "Your detention will take place at 11 o'clock tonight. Meet Mr. Filch in the entrance hall." Professor McGonagall. In the confusion over the Philosopher's Stone, Harry had completely forgotten they still had detentions to serve for being out after hours several weeks ago. At 11 o'clock that night, they went down to the entrance hall, where Filch was waiting with Malfoy, who had also been caught out of bounds. "Follow me," said Filch, lighting a lamp and leading them outside. "I bet you'll think twice about breaking a school rule again, won't you, eh?" "Oh yes, hard work and pain are the best teachers if you ask me. It's just a pity they let the old punishments die out. Hang you by your wrists from the ceiling for a few days. I've got the chains still in my office, keep them well oiled in case they're ever needed." He led them toward Hagrid's hut, where the gamekeeper stood waiting with a large crossbow and quiver of arrows. "The forest?" Malfoy repeated, sounding less cool than usual. "We can't go in there at night, there's all sorts of things in there, werewolves, I heard." "That's your problem, isn't it?" said Filch, his voice cracking with glee. "Should have thought of them werewolves before you got in trouble, shouldn't you?" Hagrid emerged from his hut, looking grim. "Abu, time. I been waitin' fair half an hour already." "I'll be back at dawn," said Filch, "for what's left of them." The moon was bright, but clouds scudding across it kept throwing them into darkness. Ahead, Harry could see the entrance to the forest, a gap between two massive trees. "Right then," said Hagrid. "Now, listen carefully, 'cause it's dangerous what we're gonna do tonight, and I don't want no one taking risks." He pointed down a narrow, winding earth track that disappeared into the dark trees. "Look there, see that stuff shining on the ground? Silvery stuff. That's unicorn blood. There's a unicorn in there been hurt badly by Summit. This is the second time in a week. I found one dead last Wednesday. We're gonna try and find the poor thing. And what if whatever hurt the unicorn finds us first?" Malfoy asked, unable to keep the fear out of his voice. "There's nothin' that lives in the forest that'll hurt ya if you're with me or Fong," said Hagrid. "And keep to the path. Right, now, we're gonna split into two parties and follow the trail in different directions." "I want Fong," said Malfoy quickly, looking at Fong's long teeth. "All right, but I warn ya, he's a coward," said Hagrid. "So me, Ron, and Hermione'll go one way and Draco, Harry, and Fong will go the other." Harry, Malfoy, and Fong took the right path while Hagrid and the others went left. They walked in silence, their eyes on the ground. Every now and then a ray of moonlight penetrated the branches, illuminating a spot of silver-blue blood. Harry noticed the blood seemed to be getting thicker. There were splashes on the tree roots, as if the poor creature had been thrashing around in pain. Through the tangled branches of an ancient oak, Harry spotted a clearing ahead. Something bright white was gleaming on the ground. They inched closer. It was the unicorn, and it was dead. Its legs stuck out at odd angles, and its mane was spread across the dark leaves. Harry had taken one step toward it when a slithering sound made him freeze. A bush on the edge of the clearing quivered, and from it emerged a hooded figure that crawled across the ground like some stalking beast. The cloaked figure reached the unicorn, lowered its head over the wound in the animal's side, and began to drink its blood. Malfoy let out a terrible scream and bolted with Fong. The hooded figure raised its head and looked right at Harry, unicorn blood dribbling down its front. It stood and came swiftly toward him. Harry's scar exploded with the worst pain he'd ever experienced. Half blinded, he staggered backward, hearing hooves galloping from the other side of the clearing. A centaur leaped over him, charging at the figure, which fled into the darkness. The centaur turned to Harry, studying him with solemn blue eyes. "The unicorn is dead. It is a monstrous thing to slay a unicorn. Only one who has nothing to lose, and everything to gain, would commit such a crime." "You mean," Harry croaked, "that was Voldemort?" "The stars have been read wrongly before now, even by centaurs. But this much is certain, that is indeed what hunts in this forest." Hagrid arrived shortly after with the others, alerted by Malfoy's panicked return to the castle. When they told him what had happened, his face went pale beneath his beard. "A figure drinking unicorn blood? And you say it went after Harry?" He looked toward the dead unicorn, then back at Harry. "We need to get you back to the castle. Now." Back in the Gryffindor common room, Harry paced in front of the fireplace, recounting the experience to Ron and Hermione. "Don't you see? Snape doesn't want the stone for himself, he wants it for Voldemort. With the elixir of life, Voldemort could come back." "Stop saying the name," Ron whispered fearfully. Hermione looked frightened but skeptical. "But Harry, are you sure it was? You know who? It could have been someone else. Who else would drink unicorn blood to stay alive?" "The centaur said it was someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain." Harry stopped pacing. "And my scar, it burns whenever Voldemort is near. That's what's been happening around Quirrell. It's not Quirrell himself, it's Voldemort, using him somehow." Ron and Hermione exchanged alarmed looks. "Harry, everyone says Dumbledore's the only one you know who was ever afraid of," Hermione said reasonably. "With Dumbledore around, you know who won't touch you." But Harry couldn't shake the dread that had settled in his stomach. Wednesday's warnings echoed in his mind, "When the moment comes, you may stand alone." That night, Harry took out the mirror again, desperate for Wednesday's guidance. "Wednesday Addams, Wednesday Addams, Wednesday Addams," he whispered. The mirror clouded, then revealed Wednesday's face. Something in her expression changed when she saw Harry, the closest thing to concern he'd ever witnessed from her. "You've encountered him," she stated rather than asked. "In the forest. Drinking unicorn blood." Harry's voice shook slightly. "You were right about Quirrell. Voldemort is possessing him somehow. Unicorn blood sustains life even when one is inches from death, but at a terrible price. It creates a half-life, a cursed existence." Wednesday's eyes glittered. He's desperate, Harry. Weakened but dangerous, like a cornered animal. What do I do? If he goes after the stone, you know what you must do. Wednesday's voice was cold, steady. What I taught you. I'm not sure I can, Harry admitted. When it was just a rat. This isn't a rat. This is the one who murdered your parents. Who would murder you without hesitation? Wednesday leaned closer to the mirror. Survival requires resolve, Harry. When the moment comes, you'll know. After ending the conversation, Harry lay in bed, unable to sleep. He'd come to Hogwarts expecting to learn magic, make friends, and perhaps discover more about his parents. Instead, he faced the prospect of confronting their murderer, armed with knowledge no child should possess. The next day, entering the potions classroom, Harry found Snape in an even fouler mood than usual. The professor stalked between the desks, criticizing everyone's work except Malfoy's. As Harry carefully prepared his ingredients for a forgetfulness potion, Snape paused behind him, watching over his shoulder. "Your moonstone is too coarsely ground, Potter," he said silkily. "Though I suppose you think your celebrity status exempts you from following basic instructions." Harry continued working without responding, maintaining his concentration. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you," Snape demanded. Harry looked up, meeting Snape's black eyes directly. For a moment, Harry felt an odd sensation, as if Snape were trying to see through him, into his thoughts. Wednesday had warned him about this. Some wizards can extract thoughts and memories directly from an unguarded mind, she'd said. Maintain mental barriers. Visualize a wall between your thoughts and anyone trying to access them. Harry focused on this mental image now, picturing a solid barrier between himself and Snape's probing gaze. Something like surprise flickered across Snape's face. "Interesting," he murmured, so quietly only Harry could hear. "Perhaps you'd stay after class, Potter. I believe we need to discuss your unusual aptitude." Harry's stomach tightened, but he nodded. "Yes, sir." When the bell rang, Harry remained seated as his classmates packed up and filed out. Ron shot him a concerned look, but Harry gave a small nod to indicate he'd be fine. Once they were alone, Snape closed the classroom door with a flick of his wand. "Where did you learn occlumency, Potter?" he asked without preamble. "Occlumency, sir." Harry kept his expression neutral, though his heart raced. "Don't play ignorant. The mental barrier you just employed, that's not something first-years stumble upon accidentally." Snape circled Harry's desk slowly. "Just as they don't normally know about aconite's applications in lycanthropy treatments or perform perfect freezing charms in their first week." Harry remained silent, weighing his options. Denying everything seemed pointless, but revealing Wednesday's teachings could raise far more dangerous questions. "Who has been training you?" Snape pressed. "Someone has been teaching you advanced magic well beyond the first-year curriculum." "I read a lot," Harry said carefully. "Books don't teach mental barriers, Potter." Snape's voice was dangerously soft. "Nor do they typically contain instructions for spells like the one you used against the troll. Incarcerus is a fourth-year spell at minimum." Harry's pulse quickened. He hadn't realized Snape knew about that detail. "Professor McGonagall was impressed by your quick thinking," Snape continued. "I found it suspicious. As I find many things about you suspicious, Potter." "Is there something wrong with being prepared, sir?" Harry countered, deciding a partial truth might defuse the situation. "After learning about how my parents really died, I wanted to understand as much magic as possible." "And where exactly did you conduct this supplementary education?" "Surely not with those Muggle relatives of yours." "I had help over the summer," Harry admitted. "From someone who recognized my abilities." Snape's eyes narrowed. "A name, Potter." "I don't think that's relevant, Professor." "I will determine what's relevant," Snape snapped. "Whoever taught you has exposed you to magic beyond your years, potentially dangerous magic. All magic is potentially dangerous, Harry replied, echoing Wednesday's philosophy. It depends on how it's used. Snape went very still. Those are not the words of an 11-year-old boy. Those are not your words at all. He leaned forward, placing both hands on Harry's desk. Let me be perfectly clear, Potter. Whatever you're involved in, whatever you think you know, you are playing with forces beyond your comprehension. With respect, sir, I think I comprehend more than you realize. A tense silence stretched between them. Snape seemed to be reassessing Harry, his expression unreadable. You may have your father's arrogance, he finally said, but your secretive nature is entirely your own. A word of warning, Hogwarts has eyes everywhere. If you employ magic beyond your years, particularly magic of a questionable nature, it will be noticed. Is that a threat, Professor? It's a reality you would do well to accept. Snape straightened up. You're dismissed, Potter. But know this, I will be watching you closely. Harry gathered his things and headed for the door, mind racing. As he reached for the handle, Snape spoke again. One last thing, Potter. If your unusual education included anything particularly forbidden, anything that might pose a danger to yourself or others, now would be the time to disclose it. The headmaster can be understanding in certain circumstances. Harry paused, considering the implicit offer. For a moment, he was tempted to unburden himself, to tell Snape about Wednesday, about the killing curse, about his suspicions regarding Quirrell. But Wednesday's caution about the British magical community's restrictions held him back. I appreciate your concern, Professor, he said instead. But I have nothing to disclose. As Harry left the dungeon, he felt Snape's eyes boring into his back. The confrontation had left him shaken but resolute. Whatever came next, he would face it with every tool at his disposal, including those Wednesday had given him. The time for hiding his knowledge was coming to an end. Soon, he suspected, he would need to embrace it fully, no matter the consequences. Chapter 3, Philosopher's Executioner. Harry felt eyes watching him for days after his confrontation with Snape. Not just the potions master's obsidian glare, but others as well, McGonagall's shrewd assessment during Transfiguration, Flitwick's curious glances in Charms, and most significantly, the twinkling blue gaze of Albus Dumbledore from the staff table during meals. Dumbledore keeps looking at you, Ron muttered during breakfast about a week after the forest incident. Think Snape told him something? Harry nodded slightly, spearing a sausage with his fork. Definitely. Snape knows I know more than I should. Hermione leaned forward, voice low. What exactly did you tell Professor Snape? Nothing specific, Harry replied. But he figured out I had some kind of training before Hogwarts. He caught me using occlumency. Using what? Ron asked through a mouthful of eggs. It's a method of protecting your mind from intrusion, Hermione explained, looking at Harry with surprise. But that's incredibly advanced magic. Where did you learn that? Harry hesitated. He'd managed to deflect these questions for months, but with Snape suspicious and Dumbledore watching, perhaps it was time to trust someone. Not with everything, never with everything, but enough. Remember those neighbors I mentioned? The ones who stayed near the Dursleys last summer. Harry kept his voice low. Their daughter taught me a few things. A few things? Hermione repeated skeptically. Harry, you've been performing spells perfectly on your first try all year. That's more than a few things. She was unusual, Harry admitted. Her family practiced a different kind of magic. Less structured than what we learn here. Ron's eyes widened. Blimey, were they dark wizards? No, Harry said quickly, perhaps too quickly. Just different. They didn't categorize magic the way British wizards do. Foreign wizards, then, Hermione deduced. What was this girl's name? Before Harry could decide how to answer, the morning mail arrived. Hundreds of owls streamed into the great hall, circling until they found their owners. To Harry's surprise, a sleek black owl swooped toward him, dropping a small package wrapped in dark purple paper before gliding away again. The package bore no name, but Harry recognized Wednesday's distinct spidery handwriting on the attached note, for the parasite problem. Use with precision. Who's sending you mysterious packages? Ron asked, craning his neck to see. Just my friend from last summer, Harry said, slipping the package into his robe pocket. I should open this in private. Hermione looked like she wanted to argue, but at that moment, the bell rang for their first class. As they stood to leave, Harry felt that distinctive prickling sensation on the back of his neck again. He turned to find Dumbledore watching him from the staff table, his expression both thoughtful and concerned. When Harry finally had a moment alone in the dormitory that evening, he carefully unwrapped Wednesday's package. Inside lay a small leather-bound book titled Parasitic Magical Entities, Identification and Extraction, and a vial containing a swirling silver-green liquid. A note tucked inside the book explained, the potion temporarily weakens magical bonds between host and parasite. Creates vulnerability. One opportunity only. Harry studied the book intently. It described various types of magical possession, from simple influence to complete physical control. The most severe, and most relevant to Harry's situation, was parasitic cohabitation, where a disembodied magical entity attached itself to a living host, gradually consuming their life force while maintaining a separate consciousness. The text described telltale signs, physical deterioration of the host, periods of personality fluctuation, areas of the body kept concealed, and magical signatures that shifted between two distinct patterns. Quirrell checked every box. Harry tucked the book and vial carefully into the hidden pocket he'd sewn inside his trunk, his mind racing. He now had both the knowledge to identify Voldemort's possession and a potential weapon against it. The question was when, and how, to use it. The following morning, Harry found a note waiting at his place at the Gryffindor table. Mr. Potter, please join me in my office today at 7 o'clock this evening. The password is, Jelly Slugs. Albus Dumbledore, Dumbledore wants to see you. Ron looked both impressed and concerned. What for? Probably to ask about my mysterious education, Harry replied, trying to sound calmer than he felt. Are you going to tell him about your summer friend? Hermione asked. Harry folded the note carefully. I haven't decided yet. Throughout the day, Harry mentally prepared for the meeting, deciding what to reveal and what to keep hidden. By the time he arrived at the stone gargoyle guarding the headmaster's office, he had a strategy in place, partial truths, strategic omissions, and just enough compliance to avoid raising further suspicion. Jelly Slugs, he said, and the gargoyle sprang aside, revealing a spiral staircase that moved like an escalator. At the top, Harry knocked on an oak door with a brass knocker. Enter, called Dumbledore's voice. The headmaster's office was a large circular room filled with interesting objects, strange silver instruments whirred and emitted puffs of smoke, portraits of previous headmasters and headmistresses dozed in their frames, and a magnificent red and gold bird sat on a perch behind the door. Ah, Harry, Dumbledore said, rising from behind his desk. Thank you for coming. Please, sit down. He gestured to a comfortable chair opposite his own. Harry sat, taking in every detail of the room while maintaining a politely interested expression. I imagine you're wondering why I've asked to speak with you, Dumbledore began, his blue eyes twinkling behind half-moon spectacles. I have a few guesses, sir, Harry replied. Indeed? Dumbledore smiled slightly. You are, I've observed, remarkably perceptive for someone your age. Thank you, sir. It's not merely a compliment, Harry, Dumbledore said gently. It's an observation that has prompted some questions among the staff. Professor McGonagall tells me you mastered a perfect switching spell in your third lesson, something most students achieve only by their second year. Professor Flitwick reports similar aptitude in charms. Harry kept his expression neutral. I practice a lot, sir. And Professor Snape informs me that you possess knowledge of mental barriers that would challenge many adult wizards. Dumbledore's gaze became more penetrating. These are not skills typically developed through individual practice, Harry. They require instruction. Harry remained silent, waiting. Dumbledore sighed. Harry, I'm not here to reprimand you. I'm simply concerned. Magic, especially advanced magic learned outside of structured education, can pose risks to young practitioners. I understand your concern, sir, Harry said carefully. But I haven't done anything dangerous. Perhaps not intentionally, Dumbledore agreed. But intention isn't always sufficient protection. May I ask who provided this extracurricular education? Harry considered his options. A complete lie would be detected, the complete truth was unthinkable. Last summer, a family moved in near the Dursleys temporarily, he finally said. They had a daughter about my age, Wednesday. She recognized that I had magic and taught me some basics. Wednesday, Dumbledore repeated, his expression unreadable. Would that be Wednesday Addams, by chance? Harry couldn't hide his surprise. You know her? I know of the Addams family, Dumbledore replied. They practice an unconventional branch of magic that dates back centuries. Quite respected in certain circles, though their methods are considered somewhat unorthodox. That sounds like them, Harry agreed, relieved he didn't have to lie about their identity. And this young Miss Addams taught you various magical techniques before your arrival at Hogwarts? Yes, sir. Basic spells, magical theory, some mental exercises. She said I had potential. Harry maintained eye contact, keeping his mental barriers firmly in place. I see. Dumbledore steepled his fingers. And did these lessons include instruction in what some might classify as dark arts? Harry tensed slightly. Wednesday doesn't categorize magic that way. She taught me that intent matters more than arbitrary classifications. A philosophy not uncommon among certain magical traditions, Dumbledore acknowledged. But one that can lead down problematic paths if followed without proper guidance. She was a good teacher, Harry defended. Everything she taught me has been useful. I don't doubt it. Dumbledore's expression softened. Harry, I'm not questioning your judgment or Miss Addams's intentions. But you must understand that at Hogwarts, we have certain standards and protections in place for good reason. Young wizards and witches require structured education to develop their abilities safely. I understand, sir, Harry said, though he wasn't sure he agreed. Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. I think perhaps you don't, not entirely. But that's to be expected, you're still very young, despite your unusual circumstances. Harry bristled slightly at being dismissed as young, but kept his expression neutral. I would ask, Dumbledore continued, that you refrain from practicing any magic Miss Addams taught you that falls outside the Hogwarts curriculum, at least until you've discussed it with a professor who can ensure it's safe. Can you agree to that? Yes, sir, Harry lied smoothly. Excellent. Dumbledore smiled, though his eyes remained serious. Now, is there anything else you'd like to tell me? Anything at all? For a brief, wild moment, Harry considered telling Dumbledore everything, about the killing curse, about Quirrell's possession, about the potion from Wednesday designed to weaken Voldemort's hold. But self-preservation won out. If Dumbledore learned about the killing curse, Harry would likely be expelled, leaving him vulnerable to whatever Voldemort planned. No, sir, Harry said. Nothing else. Dumbledore nodded, though he looked faintly disappointed. Very well. You may go, Harry. But remember, my door is always open should you change your mind. As Harry descended the spiral staircase, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just missed an important opportunity. But the die was cast now. Whatever came next, he would face it according to Wednesday's teachings, with precision, purpose, and if necessary, deadly intent. The following evening, Harry gathered Ron and Hermione in an empty classroom, locking the door and casting the basic privacy charm Wednesday had taught him. We need to talk about what's happening with the stone, he said without preamble. I think things are accelerating. What makes you say that? Hermione asked, perching on a desk. Quirrell's getting worse. Have you seen him lately? He can barely teach, he's jumpy, and he's lost at least a stone in weight. Harry paced the room. Whatever, or whoever, is draining him is getting stronger. Ron looked confused. Hang on, I thought we decided Snape was after the stone. I think we've been looking at this wrong, Harry said. Remember when I told you my scar hurts around Quirrell? I've been doing some research. He hesitated, then removed Wednesday's book from his bag. According to this, those are symptoms of being near a parasitic magical entity. Hermione took the book, examining its worn leather cover with suspicion. Where did you get this? It's not from the library. From my friend, the one who taught me last summer. The mysterious Wednesday, Hermione murmured, flipping through the pages. Her eyes widened as she read. Harry, this is talking about possession. You think Professor Quirrell is possessed by Voldemort? Harry ignored Ron's flinch at the name. Think about it, the unicorn blood in a forest, my scar hurting around Quirrell, the turban he never removes, the voice I heard talking to him when no one else was there. Blimey, Ron whispered, face pale. You really think you know who is inside Quirrell's head? Not just in his head, physically attached somehow. Probably under that turban. Harry tapped the book Hermione was still holding. The book calls it parasitic cohabitation. A disembodied entity attaching to a host, feeding off their life force while maintaining separate consciousness. Hermione looked horrified. That's terrible. We need to tell Professor Dumbledore immediately. With what proof? Harry countered. A mysterious book and my scar hurting. He already knows I've had an unconventional education, he'd just think I'm jumping to conclusions. But if you're right, Hermione began. If I'm right, Voldemort is after the Philosopher's Stone to restore his body, Harry interrupted. We need to be prepared to stop him ourselves if necessary. Ron and Hermione exchanged worried glances. That's why I want to start a study group, Harry continued. Just the three of us, focusing on defensive magic and anything else that might help against Voldemort. What kind of defensive magic? Hermione asked cautiously. Shield charms, stunning spells, disarming, basic combat magic. Nothing dark, Harry assured her, though the weight of Wednesday's final lesson pressed on his conscience. After some discussion, Ron and Hermione agreed. They established a schedule, 3 evenings a week in this same unused classroom, with Harry leading the instruction. I still think we should tell a teacher, Hermione insisted as they prepared to leave. If we get solid proof, we will, Harry promised, though he had no intention of involving adults unless absolutely necessary. Wednesday's words echoed in his mind, adults are unreliable. Their study sessions progressed quickly. Harry was impressed by how rapidly Ron and Hermione improved under focused instruction. Ron had a natural talent for shield charms, while Hermione mastered complex stunning spells with her usual academic precision. Harry taught them everything he could without revealing the full extent of Wednesday's training. They practiced disarming each other, blocking minor jinxes, and even basic healing spells for emergencies. As their skills improved, Harry shared more of his suspicions about Quirrell and the stone. I think he's waiting for something specific, a moment when Dumbledore isn't at the school. That would make sense, Hermione agreed. Everyone says Dumbledore is the only wizard you know who ever feared. So we watch Dumbledore, Ron suggested. If he leaves, we know Quirrell might make his move. They took turns monitoring both Quirrell and Dumbledore, establishing a rotation that ensured someone was always aware of both wizards' whereabouts. Meanwhile, exams approached, adding additional pressure to their already strained schedules. One evening in late May, as they practiced in their classroom, Hermione arrived looking troubled. I've been doing some research, she announced, dropping a heavy book on the desk. About your friend Wednesday. Harry tensed. What about her? I found references to the Addams family in a book from the restricted section. I got permission from Professor Binns for my essay on historical magical families. She opened the book to a marked page. The Addams lineage dates back centuries, with branches in Spain, Romania, and America. They're known for practicing a particularly ancient form of magic that predates modern classifications. That sounds right, Harry said cautiously. They're also known, Hermione continued, her voice dropping, for their proficiency in what modern wizards classify as dark arts. Blood magic, necromancy, death rituals. She looked up at Harry with concern. Harry, what exactly did Wednesday teach you? Ron was staring at Harry now too, waiting for his answer. Harry sighed, knowing he couldn't maintain complete secrecy any longer. She taught me magic doesn't have inherent morality, it's about intent and application. Some of what she taught would probably be considered dark by Hogwarts standards, but it was all about control and protection. What kind of spells? Hermione pressed. Mostly theoretical, Harry hedged. Advanced stunning, some binding spells, magical theory. Did she teach you occlumency? Hermione asked. Because that's mentioned specifically as an Addams family specialty in this book. Harry nodded, relieved to have something he could admit to. Yes, she did. Mental barriers, protecting thoughts from intrusion. That's how you knew Snape was trying to read your mind, Ron realized. Exactly. Hermione wasn't satisfied. Harry, I'm worried. If this girl was teaching you dark arts, she wasn't, Harry interrupted firmly. She was teaching me to protect myself. And given what we're facing with Quirrell, aren't you glad I can? That silenced Hermione temporarily, though Harry could tell she wasn't entirely convinced. The conversation shifted to their plans for monitoring Quirrell, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Harry would need to be more careful about what he revealed, even to his closest friends. Their vigilance paid off in early June, just after exams finished. Harry, Ron, and Hermione were relaxing by the lake when they spotted McGonagall hurrying across the grounds toward Hagrid's hut. Minutes later, she emerged with Hagrid in tow, both heading rapidly toward the castle. Something's happening, Harry said, sitting up straight. They followed at a distance, watching as McGonagall and Hagrid entered Dumbledore's office. 20 minutes later, Hagrid emerged alone, looking worried. Hagrid. Harry called as they approached. Is everything all right? Harry. Should you three be enjoying the sunshine? Hagrid attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. We saw you and Professor McGonagall rushing to Dumbledore's office, Hermione explained. Is something wrong? Hagrid hesitated. Nothing for you to worry about. Just some ministry business Dumbledore's been called away for. Very urgent, apparently, had to leave right away for London. Harry's heart raced. Dumbledore's gone. He left the school. Just for today, Hagrid assured them. Be back tomorrow morning at the latest. As soon as Hagrid had lumbered off, Harry turned to his friends. This is it. Quirrell will go after the stone tonight. We should tell Professor McGonagall, Hermione insisted. Fine, Harry agreed. But if she doesn't believe us, we move forward with our plan. They found McGonagall in her office, grading final exams. We need to speak to Professor Dumbledore, Hermione said without preamble. Professor Dumbledore left 10 minutes ago, McGonagall replied, looking surprised at their urgency. He received an urgent owl from the Ministry of Magic and flew off for London at once. He's gone? Harry asked, feigning surprise. But this is important. It's about the Philosopher's Stone. McGonagall dropped the quill she was holding. How do you know? Someone's going to try to steal it, Harry continued. Tonight. I don't know how you found out about the stone, McGonagall said, eyes narrowing, but rest assured, it is perfectly well protected. Now, I suggest you all go back outside and enjoy the sunshine. But Professor, that's enough, Potter. The stone is secure. It's protected by enchantments designed by the staff, including Professor Dumbledore himself. No one could possibly steal it. They left her office defeated, but Harry's resolve remained unshaken. Tonight, he told Ron and Hermione as they huddled in an alcove. We go after Quirrell tonight. As darkness fell over Hogwarts, Harry prepared himself in the empty dormitory. He tucked Wednesday's veil into his pocket, checked that his wand was secure in its holster, another gift from her, and mentally reviewed everything he'd learned over the past year. He met Ron and Hermione in the common room at midnight. They encountered no resistance beyond Neville, who tried to stop them leaving after hours. Hermione reluctantly used a full-body bind on him, apologizing profusely as they stepped over his rigid form. Under the invisibility cloak, they made their way to the third-floor corridor. To their dismay, they found the door already ajar. He's already inside, Harry whispered. As they entered, they faced their first obstacle, Fluffy, the three-headed dog, now magically asleep beside an enchanted harp. Quirrell must have charmed it to keep playing, Hermione observed. They slipped past the slumbering beast and through the trapdoor, landing on something soft but sinister, a large plant that immediately began wrapping tendrils around them. Devil's Snare. Hermione identified it. It likes dark and damp, so light a fire. Ron choked as the plant tightened around his chest. But there's no wood. Hermione cried, panicking. Have you gone mad? Ron bellowed. Are you a witch or not? Oh, right. Hermione pulled out her wand, cast a spell that sent jets of blue flames at the plant, and within seconds, they were free. Lucky Hermione pays attention in herbology, Ron muttered as they moved forward. The next chamber contained hundreds of flying keys. After examining the locked door, Harry identified the correct one by its bent wing, evidence Quirrell had already passed through, and used his seeker skills to catch it. The following room held a giant wizard's chess set, which Ron navigated brilliantly, sacrificing himself in the final move to allow Harry and Hermione to continue. Go on without me, he insisted after a particularly brutal takedown by the White Queen. I'll be okay. With Ron left behind, Harry and Hermione faced their next challenge, a logic puzzle involving potions and a riddle to pass through a wall of fire. Hermione solved it quickly, identifying the correct potions. There's only enough for one person in this one, she said, holding up the smallest bottle. You go forward, I'll go back to help Ron and send an owl to Dumbledore. Harry nodded, slipping Wednesday's vial from his pocket when Hermione wasn't looking. He quickly transferred the silver-green liquid into the small potion bottle, mixing it with the original contents. Wednesday had said it would weaken the bond between parasite and host, exactly what he'd need if his suspicions were correct. Harry, Hermione said suddenly, throwing her arms around him. You're a great wizard, you know. Not as good as you, Harry replied, surprised by the gesture. Me? Books and cleverness? There are more important things, friendship and bravery. She stepped back, eyes shining. Be careful. Harry watched her disappear back through the purple flames before drinking the enhanced potion and stepping through the black flames ahead. The final chamber wasn't what he'd expected. Instead of some elaborate trap, it was a simple room with a familiar object in the center, the Mirror of Erist. And standing before it was exactly who Harry had predicted, Professor Quirrell. You, Harry said calmly, not bothering to feign surprise. Quirrell turned, smiling without his usual nervousness. Me, he said, his voice steady and cold, without a trace of a stutter. I wondered if I'd be seeing you here, Potter. The stutter was a nice touch, Harry observed, slowly circling to maintain distance between them. Made people underestimate you. Quirrell laughed. Yes, quite convenient. Snape suspected me all along, but who would suspect P. Poor St. Stuttering P. Professor Quirrell? I did, Harry said. My scar hurts whenever you're near, especially when your back is turned. What's under that turban, Professor? Quirrell's eyes narrowed. Perceptive child. Too perceptive for your own good. He snapped his fingers, and ropes sprang out of thin air, wrapping themselves tightly around Harry. Harry didn't struggle. The binding spell was strong but predictable, exactly the type Wednesday had taught him to counter wandlessly. "Now, wait quietly while I examine this interesting mirror," Quirrell instructed, turning back to the mirror of Erist. "It's the key to finding the stone. Dumbledore's clever idea, but he's in London. By the time he returns, I'll be gone." As Quirrell murmured to himself about the mirror's function, Harry focused on the ropes binding him. Slowly, imperceptibly, he loosened them through controlled wandless magic, careful not to alert Quirrell to his actions. "I see the stone. I'm presenting it to my master, but how do I get it?" Quirrell cursed in frustration. A high, cold voice spoke, seemingly from Quirrell himself. "Use the boy. Use the boy." Quirrell rounded on Harry. "Potter, come here." He clapped his hands, and the ropes fell away, unwittingly helping Harry complete what he'd already begun. "Look in the mirror and tell me what you see," Quirrell demanded, positioning Harry in front of the glass. Harry stood before the mirror of Erist, expecting to see his family again. Instead, he saw only his reflection, which winked at him, reached into its pocket, and pulled out a blood-red stone. The reflection placed it back in its pocket, and as it did, Harry felt something heavy drop into his real pocket. "Well?" Quirrell asked impatiently. "What do you see?" "I see myself winning the House Cup," Harry lied smoothly. "Dumbledore's shaking my hand." "Get out of the way," Quirrell snapped, pushing him aside. But the high voice spoke again. "He lies. He lies." "Potter!" Quirrell shouted. "Tell me the truth. What did you see?" The high voice spoke once more. "Let me speak to him. Face to face." "Master, you are not strong enough. I have strength enough, for this." Harry stood rooted to the spot as Quirrell began unwinding his turban. What was revealed caused even Harry's trained composure to falter. The back of Quirrell's head hosted another face. Chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils, it resembled a snake more than a human. "Harry Potter," it whispered. "See what I have become. Mere shadow and vapor. I have form only when I can share another's body, but there have always been those willing to let me into their hearts and minds. Unicorn blood has strengthened me, and once I have the elixir of life, I will be able to create a body of my own. Now, give me the stone in your pocket." Harry's hand moved to his wand, but he hesitated. Wednesday's voice echoed in his memory. "The potion creates vulnerability. One opportunity only." "You're not the first parasite I've encountered," Harry said, surprising both Quirrell and Voldemort. "But you're definitely the ugliest." "Seize him!" Voldemort shrieked. Quirrell lunged forward, grabbing Harry by the wrist. Immediately, a needle-sharp pain seared through Harry's scar, but something else happened too. Quirrell recoiled, howling in pain, his fingers blistering where they had touched Harry's skin. "Seize him! Seize him!" Voldemort shrieked again. Quirrell dove at Harry, tackling him to the ground, both hands around his neck. The pain in Harry's scar was blinding, but Quirrell was screaming even louder, his hands burning with angry red blisters. "Master, I cannot hold him, my hands, my hands." This was Harry's moment. The unexpected protection his touch provided combined with Wednesday's potion created the perfect opportunity. With Quirrell momentarily distracted by pain, Harry reached into his pocket and grasped his wand. "Avada Kedavra," he whispered. Green light erupted from his wand, hitting Quirrell in the chest at point-blank range. The professor's body went instantly rigid, then collapsed, eyes vacant. But rather than ending the confrontation, this triggered something unexpected. A vapor-like substance began pouring from Quirrell's body, from his mouth, his eyes, every orifice. The ghostly form of Voldemort, momentarily visible, howled in rage. "What have you done, boy?" the spectre hissed. "What magic is this?" The vapor twisted and writhed, seeming weakened but not destroyed. It rose above them, coalescing into a vaguely human shape. "You cannot kill what is already between life and death," Voldemort's voice echoed. "But I will remember this, Harry Potter. Next time, there will be no mercy." The spirit form of Voldemort lunged at Harry, passing through his body like ice-cold water. The pain in his scar exploded beyond anything he'd experienced, and darkness claimed him. Harry awoke in the hospital wing, surrounded by sunlight streaming through tall windows. Dumbledore sat beside his bed, watching him with those penetrating blue eyes. "Good afternoon, Harry," the headmaster said gently. Harry's mind raced, assembling fragments of memory: the stone, Quirrell, Voldemort, and the killing curse. Had Dumbledore witnessed it? Did he know? "Sir, the stone, calm yourself, dear boy. You are a little behind the times. Quirrell does not have the stone." "Then who does?" "No one. I spoke with Nicholas, and we've agreed the stone should be destroyed." Harry processed this, then asked the question he most dreaded the answer to: "What happened down there, sir? With Quirrell and Voldemort?" Dumbledore's expression grew somber. "That, Harry, is what I hoped you might tell me." A heavy silence hung between them. Harry chose his words carefully. "Quirrell was possessed by Voldemort. He tried to grab me, but my touch burned him. Then..." Harry hesitated. "Then Voldemort left Quirrell's body, and it was like his life just stopped." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it omitted the crucial detail of Harry actively causing that stopping. "Indeed," Dumbledore said thoughtfully. "You see, your mother died to save you. If there is one thing Voldemort cannot understand, it is love. He didn't realize that love as powerful as your mother's leaves its own mark. Not a scar, no visible sign, but a protection in your very skin. Quirrell, full of hatred, greed, and ambition, sharing his soul with Voldemort, could not touch you for this reason." Harry absorbed this explanation, which aligned with what had happened, yet didn't fully account for it. The protection may have weakened Quirrell, but it was the killing curse that had ended him. "And the stone, sir?" "Ah, yes. When you looked into the mirror of Eriste, it gave the stone to you because you wanted to find it, not use it. One of my more brilliant ideas, if I do say so myself." They discussed Voldemort's escape, Flamel's decision to die now that the stone would be destroyed, and how Harry's friends had fared after the ordeal. Finally, Harry asked the question that had been bothering him since he awoke. "Sir, there's one more thing." "Just the one? How did I survive? When Voldemort's spirit passed through me, I thought I was going to die." Dumbledore studied him over his half-moon glasses. "I believe, Harry, that the same protection that prevented Quirrell from touching you provided some defense against Voldemort's spirit. Though I suspect..." He paused, his gaze intensifying. "I suspect there may have been other factors at play as well." Harry met his eyes steadily, maintaining his mental barriers. "What kind of factors, sir?" "The kind, perhaps, that young Miss Adams might have helped you acquire." Harry's heart skipped a beat, but he kept his expression neutral. "I don't understand." "Don't you?" Dumbledore sighed. "Harry, when I arrived in that chamber, I found a most unusual magical residue. The kind associated with very specific, very powerful magic. Magic that no first-year student should know, let alone be able to perform." Harry remained silent. "I will ask you directly, Harry," Dumbledore continued, his voice gentle but firm. "Did you use the killing curse on Professor Quirrell?" For a moment, Harry considered denying it. But something in Dumbledore's expression told him the headmaster already knew the truth. "He was already dying," Harry said quietly. "My touch was burning him, destroying him. I just accelerated the inevitable." "And you knew this curse how?" Though Dumbledore's tone remained even, the twinkle had completely disappeared from his eyes. "Wednesday taught me," Harry admitted. "Theoretically at first, then practically on insects and rats. She said knowledge itself isn't dark, only intent matters. A convenient philosophy, Dumbledore observed, but one that ignores the corrupting influence certain magics can exert on those who wield them. I'm not corrupted, Harry said firmly. I used it because it was necessary, because Voldemort had to be stopped. And yet, Voldemort escaped nonetheless. Dumbledore leaned forward. Harry, you must understand the seriousness of what you've done. The killing curse is not merely forbidden, it's unforgivable. Its use carries a mandatory life sentence in Azkaban. Are you going to turn me in? Harry asked, meeting the headmaster's gaze steadily. I should, Dumbledore said softly. By all rights, I should contact the Ministry immediately. Harry waited, pulse racing but expression calm. But I will not, Dumbledore continued after a long pause. You are a child who was placed in an impossible situation. You acted with what you believed was necessary force against a wizard who had already committed multiple murders and would have committed more. Relief washed over Harry, though he didn't let it show. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, Harry. Dumbledore's voice hardened slightly. This reprieve comes with conditions. First, you will surrender any materials Miss Adams provided regarding dark magic. Second, you will not, under any circumstances, perform that curse or any similar magic again while at Hogwarts. And third, you will agree to private sessions with me next year to discuss the proper applications and limitations of magical power. Harry considered these terms. The first would be problematic. He had no intention of surrendering Wednesday's gifts, but he could find ways around it. The second and third were acceptable compromises. I agree, he said, deciding to negotiate the details later. Good. Dumbledore stood, smoothing his robes. Rest now, Harry. We'll speak more when you've recovered fully. As Dumbledore turned to leave, Harry called after him, Sir. One last question. Yes. If the protection my mother left is so powerful, if love is truly stronger than dark magic, then why teach me to fear what Wednesday taught me? Why shouldn't I use every tool available against Voldemort? Dumbledore paused, considering his answer carefully. Because, Harry, the tools we use shape who we become. Your mother died to save you out of love. That sacrifice created protection more powerful than any dark spell. When you choose your weapons against darkness, remember that, choose those that honor what she died to protect, not those that corrupt it. With that, Dumbledore departed, leaving Harry alone with complicated thoughts. Ron and Hermione visited later that day, eager to hear everything. Harry provided an edited version of events, emphasizing Quirrell's demise due to his mother's protection rather than the killing curse. The whole school's talking about it, Ron informed him. What really happened between you and Quirrell is a complete mystery, though everyone's got theories, of course. Dumbledore wouldn't tell anyone specific details, Hermione added. He just announced that Professor Quirrell had unfortunately passed away after attempting to steal an item under Hogwarts protection. What about the third-floor corridor? Harry asked. Closed off again. Whatever enchantments were there have been removed. Hermione studied Harry with concern. Harry, what really happened down there? You seem different. Near-death experiences change people, Harry replied with a weak smile. Let's just say I understand some things better now. When Madame Pomfrey finally declared Harry fit to attend the end-of-year feast, he found the Great Hall decorated in Slytherin green and silver. The House Cup standings had Slytherin in first place, followed by Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, and Gryffindor in last. However, Dumbledore had last-minute points to award, 50 each to Ron and Hermione for their roles in protecting the stone, and 60 to Harry, for pure nerve and outstanding courage, pushing Gryffindor into first place. As the Great Hall erupted in cheers, Harry caught Snape's eye across the room. The potions master's expression contained its usual loathing, but now mixed with something new, wariness, perhaps, or a grudging reassessment. Harry met his gaze unflinchingly until Snape looked away. At the Hogwarts Express the next morning, Harry was surprised to find a small package on his seat, wrapped in black paper with a silver ribbon. Inside was a book bound in dark leather titled Ethical Applications of Power, and a note in Wednesday's spidery handwriting: "Survival is only the beginning. Now comes the harder part, deciding what kind of survivor you'll be. Use what I taught you wisely. Destruction is easy, creation requires greater skill. Write when you're settled. Your friend, W.A." Harry smiled, tucking the book into his trunk before Ron and Hermione arrived. As the train pulled out of Hogsmeade Station, he gazed back at the castle receding into the distance. His first year had been nothing like he'd expected, more dangerous, more complex, and infinitely more educational than any standard curriculum could have provided. He had faced Voldemort and survived. He had used forbidden magic and escaped consequences. He had made true friends who stood by him despite danger. But Harry knew this was only the beginning. Voldemort would return, stronger next time. Dumbledore would be watching him more closely. And the knowledge Wednesday had given him would continue to shape his approach to magic in ways his professors might never approve. "You all right, Harry?" Ron asked, noticing his thoughtful expression. "Never better," Harry replied truthfully. "Just thinking about next year." "It's got to be calmer than this one," Hermione said optimistically. "What could possibly be more dangerous than facing you-know-who?" Harry smiled but didn't answer. After everything he'd learned this year, about magic, about power, about himself, he suspected the future held challenges that would make the Philosopher's Stone incident seem like a minor skirmish. But thanks to Wednesday Addams, he would be ready. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.